You get one under the radar. So how about at least get the signatures of the businesses supporting. And yeah, and I'm saying, yeah, like.
Brady, you want to brother want to go? So we might.
So we took homeless guys to football games. Share with me.
Hopefully they're homeless when they're at the beach.
Only Deerfield Beach. That's when there were homeless people. They know where.
Hi.
Services to our residents that are useful and that they can actually need. So for residents to be able to come out today and get rid of their personal and confidential documents safely so they can be shredded, any identity theft that we can prevent in our city is great. You know, we do so much here in the city of Deerfield Beach for our residents that this is really the best place to live, work, and play. Not only do I say that as your commissioner, but also as a resident here in Deerfield Beach as well. We offer spectacular service for the best, lowest taxes possible. So enjoy everything that we have to offer. The number of compliments I've received from the residents this morning has just been overwhelming. They really appreciate their city bringing this service and offering it to them for the ability for them to bring out their documents. To be able to offer this on a quarterly basis to the residents for free, no less, I think is something we should all be very proud of.
Hey, I'm excited to see you.
We are introducing DFB Compost. We will be providing service for 100 residential subscribers and 5 business subscribers for food waste recycling and composting.
Whenever I clean out my fridge on Sunday nights, it makes me feel a little bit better knowing that it's going to go to compost instead of going into the landfill.
The footprint that we leave behind with less landfill, just our restaurant, 1,000 pounds a month, is huge.
So we compost for our children and our children's children.
All you do is separate your food waste, right? Instead of putting it in the trash can, you put it in the bucket. Once a week, we're going to come by, we'll empty your bucket, we'll take the stuff back, we'll compost it, and then twice a year, you'll get a give back of finished compost.
We'll also be delivering that material to community gardens just to take what we're producing and really cycle it back through our ecosystem here in Deerfield Beach. So make sure you sign up now and secure your spot in the program.
The kids love it. It's a really nice family atmosphere, nice and cool here on the water.
I love this park. It's so much fun for the kids, and the splash park, and it's so beautiful because it's next to Intercoastal.
And it is fantastic. I know it's fairly new, but the splash park is what entices to come, but there's just so much more. Tell you that Deerfield has really hit a home run right here. That's for sure.
Hi, Miss Gracie. How are you? You're late? Oh, yeah.
I'm so proud. As a daughter, as a family, we are so proud because my dad truly poured his heart out to the community. And to see that come back in the form of a building, a center, being named and constructed on his behalf is absolutely amazing.
In order for the city to progress, in order for us to keep up with the needs of our community, we need projects like this. We need to build for the community.
I just want to say thank you for recognizing the awesome and amazing man that my dad was.
This was a man that really made an impact in his community. He loved his community. He worked here for many, many, many years. I personally saw him giving to others in this community that did not have.
We heard the community through that process, and they wanted certain things to change about the way in which we designed it, and we listened to you, and we made that happen. And I say that because for me, the most important thing that I like to tell my staff is that we must engage the community in the decision-making process. And we want to make sure that you are involved at all times in the decisions that we make.
It's a special building. A lot of time went into its planning. And now that we're right now on the precipice of getting this done, this is a great, great thing for our city. And it will always bear
downsizing and the high prices of food at the grocery stores. It's a good supplement that benefits the whole community. Thank you for serving.
This has been a dream come true. And to know that in 1 year, in 52 Saturdays, we've been able to distribute 150,000 pounds of food to our neighbors in this community is just, there are almost no words to describe it.
I love it. It's a lifesaver. In between weeks, it's so hard to get that extra little bit going.
We have the fresh produce that comes in. It could be anywhere from peppers to the bananas and the bok choy, and we have kale.
Just look around me. There are hundreds of people that volunteer their time and efforts here, and it doesn't happen without them.
When you see what you do for others, the love and the compassion that walks through these walls, and what we are doing is a phenomenal job for the city of Deerfield Beach.
We've been able to layer in value-added services. We've been able to bring in Broward Health Point as a wonderful partner who is here virtually every Saturday with their mobile, they call it a health clinic, but their mobile doctor's office.
It's a lot of family here. It's a lot of people come with kids. You know, a lot of mothers that's pregnant. And you need medical, not only food, you need medical.
It's important to stop by here and feel what Nina's Place is. Because when you do that, it expands your understanding and allows you to share it with people. You may not need any, but you may know people that need things.
The Rattlers are back.
It's electric.
It's game time.
It's exciting.
We are ready.
Just like every other volunteer out here, you know, we love these kids. You know, we love the community.
Let's go, Rattlers!
It gives the kids such motivation to see their parents back there yelling for them, you know, the crowd yelling when someone scores a touchdown.
I thank all the parents and all the coaches and everybody that helped us keep it together.
Take it up, take it up, take it up.
You don't find people these days that put all their time and effort into getting youths together.
It's the least thing that we can do as an organization is to pour into the kids. So that's why we do it. We come out here because we want to make a difference. And if it's just one kid that we have an opportunity to make an impact on, then it's worth it.
The good part, Mr. Riley, Packer Outlet Sport Members in general, you know, it's a good program. They're here every day, making sure the kids have what they need.
It says that we love the kids. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about the kids.
The talent that comes through here is unbelievable. It's some of the best in the nation. And the tradition, you know, holding on to it is important. You know, from 1976, just great football, great championships, great people. And we want to just hold on to that and just keep it growing.
How you feel? How you feel?
Eddie, test 1, 2, 3. Eddie, test 1, 2, 3.
We looked at it, we just said, this has got to be a brewery. It's just the right spot, the right location. We knew the Cove neighborhood.
Eddie, testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing. Okay, good. It's on.
Okay.
It's good news.
Recording in progress.
Why not? Little bit couldn't hurt. That'd be better if it were hot. Tea would have been better. I'm all set. I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting for February 6th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Can we please have roll call?
Commissioner Drosky,
Here.
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Preston,
Here.
Vice Mayor Parnes,
Here.
Mayor Gans.
Here. Will you please stand for a moment of silence and our pledge of allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We please have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for the regular city commission meeting of January 9th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes for the Marine Advisory Board meeting of November 16th, 2023, Hillsborough Inlet District meeting minute of November 20th, 2023, and Cultural Committee meeting minutes for December 18th, 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, approval of our agenda tonight for February 6th, 2024.
So moved.
Motion by the Vice Mayor, second by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, Madam Clerk?
For those attending via Zoom online, wishing to speak under public comment or on an item that's open for public input, please click raise hand at the bottom under the reactions tab, and your audio will be unmuted when you're recognized by Mayor Gans. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and your audio will be unmuted when you're recognized by Mayor Gans. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 1 on tonight's agenda is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, rezoning approximately 16.5 gross acres located at 600 and 700 West Hillsborough Boulevard from Highway Business District B2 to Planned Development District PDD, application 21-R-196, providing for a maximum of 360 dwelling units, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date. This is first reading. Mr. Dennis Mealy is here on behalf of the applicant to present this item.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Pursuant to Ordinance 2009-006, City of Deerfield Beach Code of Ethics, the applicant's representative's firm, Greenspoon Martyr, made the following campaign contributions. Commissioner Michael Hudak, $500 on February 5th, 2019, and $500 on November 21st, 2022. Commissioner Ben Preston, $500 on February 9th, 2023. Vice Mayor Bernie Parnez, $500 on January 19th, 2021. And Commissioner Todd Drosky, $500 on December 23rd, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mealy, do you want to come up?
Yes, sir. Dennis Mealy, 200 East Broward Boulevard, on behalf of the applicant. I have some slides to show, and then I would also, at the appropriate time, like to have our traffic engineer come up to explain the traffic slides.
Okay.
So if we could go to the next one, please. So this is the property. We don't own the hotel, but we own the rest of the property at that quadrant at I-95 in Hillsborough, bordered by Natura on the east and south. But the hotel is separate, although you will see in our plan how we've accommodated the hotel in our plan with the access and the driveways and everything. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we did the land use plan amendment for this site while back. It was approved by the city and the county. No adverse comments from any of the review agencies. So that was the previous land use designation of commercial. If we could go to the next slide. So we changed that to the medium-high 25 unit per acre category for the city of Deerfield Beach. Our actual density is not 25 units an acre. It's a little bit less than 22. I think it's 21.8. But that's the category that the land use was changed to and that we fit in. We can go to the next slide, please. So what we have on the agenda for this evening is the first reading of the rezoning in order to match the land use designation. So the current zoning designation is B2. And then if we go to the next slide, it will show the proposed zoning designation of PDD. Now, we also have a site plan and other items. Now, those are not on the agenda tonight. Those would be on with the second reading. But based on the fact that the questions that we've heard at previous meetings, I would like to go ahead and show those slides too. And those are coming up momentarily. So anyway, the first reading of the rezoning tonight to go from B2 to PDD. If we could go to the next slide, please.
Could you tell the people what PDD means?
Sure. PDD is plant.
Excuse me. If you can't hear, but you can't call out, please. Thank you.
PDD is Planned Development District. So it is typically used for a mixed-use development such as the one we're proposing tonight that has a combination of office uses, commercial uses, and residential uses. That's typically what PDD is used for. The good thing about PDD is, unlike regular zoning districts, it gives the city the ability to ask us to make improvements, to do things that are public benefits. So we'll show improvements that we're making in the area, contributions we're making to city programs that are part of this public benefit that grows out of the PDD process. If we could go to the next slide, please.
And Mr. Mealy, if you just pull the mic as close to you as possible.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? So thank you. So this is the existing site. And again, you see that the hotel is shown in kind of gray because that's not something that we own, but you see the three existing buildings. These buildings need work. They need to look better. They need to function better. And that's part of what we're doing with this plan. So if we could go to the next slide. This is the proposed plan. So you can see in the center of the site where you now see this pink, which is the new residential building, the office building that is there now would be demolished. There you go. That one right. Yep. You can go back to that if you want real quick. There you go. That one that's kind of a cross shape in the middle, that one will be demolished. The other two buildings will be renovated pretty significantly. So if we can go back to that site plan. So you see the new residential building in pink where that one office building is now that will be removed. The other two office buildings you see remaining. The building C, the 700 building, you'll see the footprint of it is a little different in order to accommodate the new circulation through the site. We're shaving off a little portion of that building, and we'll show that in a minute. You see the circulation. We have access to Hillsborough Boulevard. And we have 3 access points onto Natura. 2 of them have median openings, which means you could turn left or right. And the northernmost one, just to the east of the 600 building, is right turn in and right turn out. But the other 2 line up with median openings on Natura. And then you see, and for future phases, there's a parking deck there now. That's kind of at the lower right of this diagram. And as a future phase, we will be showing office uses on top of that parking deck. And then all the way down at the lower left portion of the site is a later phase as well for additional office use. So we can go to the next slide, please. So community enhancements are a combination of improvements that we're making and contributions. So first, and I'll ask our traffic engineer later to come up and explain this in more detail. But what we do when we do a site like this is we do a traffic analysis, and then the city retains its own traffic engineer to review our traffic engineer's work and to recommend changes, corrections, et cetera. So what comes out of that are a series of improvements that are designed to handle the increased traffic associated with any development in the area. So the first thing is at the intersection of Natura and Hillsborough. We will be lengthening the left turn lanes for both northbound Natura to westbound Hillsborough and westbound Hillsborough to southbound Natura. That's the ones that you see number 1. Number 2, there are missing sidewalks along Natura adjacent to this development, and we will be putting in the sidewalks wherever they are missing. And then we're doing drainage improvements all along Natura. This is something that the city's engineering department identified as a need that needed to be corrected. We're making I believe it's a $200,000 contribution to improvements at Oviedo McKeithen Park, which is right across the street from us. In addition to that, we're paying the normal park impact fees. So the extra payment for the park across the street is just that. It's in addition to the normal park impact fee payments pursuant to your code. And then we're paying $500 per unit towards the city's affordable housing fund as well. That was a commitment we made at the time of the land use amendment that has already been memorialized. If we could go to the next slide, please. So circulation within the site, you may recall that the land use amendment was some time ago. One of the things we spent a lot of time on was to make sure that we had proper circulation through the site. So you see in that kind of reddish color, the sidewalks and walkways and plazas and paved areas within the site for pedestrians. And then in blue, you see the vehicular circulation into and around and in the site itself. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is the phasing plan. So really what when we come back for the site plan at the next meeting, whenever we're next on the agenda, we'll have phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 is the demolition of that office building, the construction of the new residential building, and then a lot of work on the site itself. That's why you see that kind of teal bluish color is not only buildings, but it's also hardscape, landscape in the site itself. Also, that phase 1 is all of the horizontal improvements around the 600 building. And then phase 2 is the 600 building renovations themselves. Phase 3 and 4, which are, you see it at the lower left and the lower right, those are not site plans yet. Those would have to come back in the future for approval as site plans because we don't just have the level of detail for that yet, and we're not ready to build those yet. What we're really ready to do is what you see in phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 also includes the renovations to the 700 building. So I'll show photos of that as we go. If we could go to the next slide, please. So again, this is the phase 1 site plan. Everything that you see in blue and in tan and where it says phase 1, it's all part of that. Demolishing that office building, cutting off the kind of the lower tail, so to speak, of the 700 building. Adding the public plazas. We have 3 public plazas. I'll show those in detail. And adding the residential building and the improvements to the 700 building. So we can go to the next slide, please. So these are some pictures. So this is the residential building. And on each of the pictures, you'll see in the corner a plan view that shows like where you would be standing and looking where this picture is showing you. So for example, on this one in the lower right, you see that red star. This would be as if you were at the corner of Natura and Hillsborough and looking towards the southwest. And you're seeing the corner and the frontage of that residential building. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is the 700 building. You see, if I'll show you in a picture in a minute of what it looks like today, but an entirely new facade, entirely new colors, materials to make it match with the residential building that we're also building, and to also make it match with the renovations we're doing to the 600 building. So again, this one you see the little in the lower left-hand corner, you see the star. This would be as if you were standing at the, I guess, the western property line of the hotel and looking northwest towards the 700 building itself. So that's part of the phase 1 improvements. We can go to the next slide, please. So then this is the 600 building. This is the one closest to the corner of Natura and Hillsborough. And we will be doing hardscape and landscape improvements around the building. And then as part of phase 2, the improvements to the building itself. When you look at this picture and you see where that cube is to the left of the building, today, that area is a large expanse of asphalt. And it's really not useful for anything. So you see that that large expanse of asphalt is going to be replaced with landscaping and hardscape and artwork just to make the area look better. If we can go to the next slide, please. So then I mentioned that we have these 3 public plaza areas. One of them is right at the corner of Hillsborough and Natura. The other one is at the southern portion of the property near one of the median openings and entrances off of Natura. And the third one is right near the entry to the residential building itself off of Hillsborough. So those are the 3 different locations. There's public art, there's hardscape, landscape, just an area that'll look nice that as you're transitioning through the site, or if you work there, you're eating lunch or you live there, places that you can be. We can go to the next slide, please. So these are, again, showing you a little bit more detail about those areas and what they look like. And again, this is more for the site plan than the rezoning, but it's part of what we'll have at the next meeting as well. If we can go to the next slide, please. So just a couple more views. Again, that's a view of the residential building. We can go to the next one. I promise I'm almost done. This is a view as if you're on the driveway coming in of Hillsborough. You're looking to the west at the building itself. By the way, the colors that we're using here are from the Pioneer Grove palette of colors, some of the materials, et cetera. So this has been reviewed in that context. Go to the next slide, please. Another view of the residential building. Go to the next one. And then on the left is what the 700 building looks like today. And on the right is what it will look like when we're done. Just, you know, a very important improvement to the look of the building. It's very dated, what we have there today. You can go to the next slide, please. And then again, just another view of the 700 building. This would be like a little, you're dropping someone off, they're going into the office, you're picking someone up, et cetera. You see where that area would be. We can go to the next one, please. Another view of the same building. Boy, our architect loves these drawings, but another view of the same building. We can go to the next one. Okay, and then again, this is the comparison. On the left, you see what the 600 building looks like today and that expanse of asphalt I was talking about. You see in that picture on the left. And then on the right, you see what it's going to look like when we're done. And if we can go to the next one, next slide, you'll see even a little bit more of a close-up of how it'll look when we're done. I think we have one more. There you go. So that's that new plaza area to the east side of the 600 building where we have the large expanse of asphalt today. And if we go to the next one, please. Same thing, showing you that plaza area. Next one, please. And then these are, this drawing is of the phase 3 future building that would go at the southwest corner of the site. We're not ready to build it yet, but you see the architect's already working on some images. And again, to make it the architecture match with what we're doing elsewhere on the site. This is not something we're doing now. This is something for the future. And if we go to the next one, please. And the same thing here. If you look at the upper panel on the left, you see the garage that we have today, and then you see this building where it says phase 4 that would go on top of that garage. And then the phase 2 building is the 600 building we've already been talking about. So just some views of that. Again, that's something for the future. It's not something that we're doing today. It's not part of the site plan that you'll have at your next meeting. You can go to the next slide, please. So as we met with our neighbors in Natura, there was a lot of discussion about the intersection of Hillsborough Boulevard and Natura Boulevard and how to improve it so it operates better. What I'd like to do, if it was okay, is to introduce our traffic engineer to come up and explain the different alternative ways to improve this intersection the way that we believe the county and the DOT will approve. And so we'd like to explain that and also show the alternatives that the neighbors talked to us about so you could see the comparison. Joaquin?
Thank you, Dennis. Mayor and Commissioners, Joaquin Vargas with Traftech Engineering. Before I talk about these slides, I just want to do a little quick recap. As Mr. Mealy mentioned, we are doing extension of turn lanes at Hillsborough and Natura, the north to west and the west to south. Also some signalization optimization at that location as well. In addition to that, our reports were reviewed by the state. The state also asked for some supplemental analysis, which we provided to them. They focused the review on the main intersection on Hillsborough and also the intersection of Hillsborough and Natura. Regarding the main entrance, the state has some standards for turn lanes. It did not trigger the need for a dedicated right turn lane, but the state asked us to incorporate a right turn lane at the main entrance on Hillsborough, and that was incorporated into the site plan. Now, let me talk about these slides. This first slide, and I know it's very busy. The part on the left shows a Google aerial of the intersection of Hillsborough and Natura. And if you look at going north on Natura, we have 3 lanes. Those are the yellow, the white arrows, one to turn left to go towards I-95, one to go straight to Fairway Drive, and one to go east towards Federal Highway, Dixie, and the beach. On the right side, on the top, you'll see this is an actual photo of what drivers will see when they get to Hillsborough Boulevard from Natura. There's 2 signal assembly. The one on the left has 5 lenses. The reason that one has 5 lenses is because there's a solid green, which is what you see on that photo, but it also has a left arrow in addition to that, which is not on that photo. And the one on the right only has 3 lenses. The signal for north and south, which is Natura and Fairway, operates on a two-phase program. The first phase, and you see the bottom of the photo, is the left turn arrow for northbound Natura and southbound Fairway. So both left turns occurring at the same time. That's phase number one. Then at the bottom, phase two is the solid green, and that matches that photo. The solid green, which means that all movements go, the lefts, the throughs, and the rights, with one exception, the left turn has to yield to oncoming traffic. But the left turn movement has two opportunities to turn left. One when they have the arrow, which is phase one, and the second opportunity when they have the solid green. If you go to the next slide, please. This next slide just shows, it's the same graphic as before, just shows that we are lengthening that northbound left turn. If you see the white arrow, we're lengthening that turn lane to be able to accommodate all the projected left turning vehicles on that particular lane. If you go to the next slide. This next slide, this was a suggestion that the neighbors gave to us. And we looked at that, we evaluated that, and let me tell you about that. What they recommended was the center lane, which today is to go straight towards Fairway Drive, and I've color coded it in blue. They wanted to convert that to a share lane to go straight or left. So instead of it being a dedicated straight lane, it'll be a share lane or straight or left turn. That way we have two lanes to go towards I-95. On the right side, the required signal phasing to accommodate that is what is called split phasing. And I'll describe what split phasing is. Broward County, about 15, maybe 20 years ago, they started a program to eliminate all intersections that operate on a split phase signal phasing because they're very inefficient. And let me describe what that would require. So phase one, if you remember before, existing condition is northbound left and southbound left. The left turns occurring at the same time. In this case, a split phase, phase one is just northbound Natura, all movements, lefts, throughs, and rights. Then you stop Natura and then southbound Fairway, lefts, through, and right. That's what's called a split phase. And we evaluated that and it performs worse. We know that if we go to the state and the county with an operation that's worse, even if the operation is better but not significantly, they would probably say no because it's a split phase operation. Now, we did not want to just discard their idea. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So we wanted to test not having the previous one, that one, correct. Not having the split phase, but having two lanes. In this case, the white stays the same. The northbound left turn lane stays the same. The center is converted from a through only to a left only. And then the rightmost that was right turn only, that one we can have as a shared through and right. That way it wouldn't require the split phase operation. And the phasing arrangement is on the right-hand side. You see that phase one, what Natura will see is they have to see two arrows. Now, when you have two lanes, you need to see two arrows. Right now, they only see one arrow. A southbound Fairway, they will still see the same one arrow that they have. And then on the second phase, notice that the left turn lanes have a red arrow. You cannot turn left from two left turn lanes yielding to oncoming traffic. That's unsafe. That is not allowed. So that's why you see on phase two that the two left turn arrows are red, and only the northbound through and the northbound right can occur, and southbound all movements occur. If you go to the last slide, and we tested that, this is using the software that the county, the traffic signals utilizes, and we tested that, and the result was that it's better to have one lane than having two lanes northbound Natura. In this last slide, I'll try to explain it because it's counterintuitive. How can one lane be better than two? In some occasions, it does occur. This is one of those occasions. I've worked on other situations where that happens. Worked on one on Miami Gardens Drive, I think it was 87th Avenue, that the same situation happened. But let me describe what this last slide indicates. On the left side, that is the current signal timing with one left turn lane northbound to westbound to 95. And see that phase one, the left turn goes. And then phase two, all movements can occur, but if you look at the left turn arrows, they're not solid. I purposely did them like that to just designate that you have to yield to oncoming traffic. Well, at this intersection, and you all probably are aware of this, that there's very little oncoming traffic from Fairway to going south towards Natura. The counts that we did show that it's during each cycle, you may have one vehicle. So basically the left turn movement has two opportunities to turn left, when they have the arrow, and then when it's solid that you have to yield to oncoming, because oncoming traffic is almost non-existent, they also occur. On the right side is if we have the two left turn lanes, this is the phasing arrangement that we need. First, the left turns with the dual lefts for northbound to westbound, but then on the second phase, the northbound movement has a red indication, so you cannot occur. So you only have one opportunity to turn left. Yes, you have two lanes, but when you compare the two, the timing shows that it's better with one lane and the improvements that we are recommending. That concludes my presentation. I'll turn it over back to Mr. Mealy.
So the long and short of all of that is that we agree with the neighbors that an improvement is needed at the corner of Natura and Hillsborough. As we analyze it with the professional engineers, with our traffic engineer, with your traffic engineer, with knowing what the county and the DOT will and won't do, making that left turn lane from Natura to Hillsborough longer, as opposed to putting in a second one, is going to work better at the intersection and is going to be more able to be approved by the county and the DOT. So I think we're all saying the same thing. This intersection needs to be improved. The ideas that the neighbors came up with were good ideas, but for the technical reasons that were described, it won't work as well. It won't get you through the intersection as fast as if we make the one left turn lane much longer, which is what we're doing. I think we've all seen these intersections where, you know, you're ready to go. The people are coming towards you to the south, but you have to wait because there's four separate parts to the signal instead of two separate, where north and south go at the same time. And so when north and south can go at the same time, it generally works better. The other point that I think Joaquin was making is while that intersection is busy, the one movement that's not busy is there's not a lot of people going northbound on Natura to then go northbound on Fairway. They're either turning left or right onto Hillsborough. And the same thing with the people coming out of Fairway. Almost all of them are either turning left and right on Hillsborough. Not very many of them are going straight through. And this was all done as part of counts that we did for the studies. So it's not just anecdotal, it's actual evidence. So anyway, those were the items that we wanted to present. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. At the end of the public comment period, I'd like the opportunity to respond as appropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Mealy, first of all, thank you for going out and speaking with the residents and trying to address their concerns. A project of this nature, number one, ought to be how impactful, thought process anyway, how impactful is this going to be to the residents that live there? How can we address whatever those concerns are that will not make them uncomfortable in that area? Now, here's what's happening. I've gone out there several times and just sit and watch. What people are doing now is making the second phase where it turns green, they're making it phase one.
They're turning left from the center lane, right?
That's right. And it's just a matter of time before something happens. Just a matter of time. I sit there and I watch it. I've gone there so many different times and nothing has changed. And the other thing why this has to in some form be mitigated is that you're going to have increased traffic just a few years down the road. And what people have done now is looked at Natura Boulevard as a shortcut. That's a shortcut. They go from 10th, they come from 10th, and then they jump on it, and now it's increased. So you know, early in the morning, you're only going to get, as soon as you come around that curve a little bit, it's just backed up. That's not going to get any better. And so I don't know that 2 lanes wouldn't be appropriate, because I hear what you're saying as far as the safety is concerned, and that data may be appropriate for what you're trying to, but just watching it, they made the center lane into a turn lane and people are swerving, just missing each other, it's just a matter of time. And so now, knowing that there's going to be increased traffic in that area, that's going to even more impact the residents of Natura, even more. And so I just think that I appreciate the idea of looking into it. What can we do to mitigate those concerns? But to me, there has to be, before this project can go forward, in my mind, is that we have to assure the residents is that the most that can be done, taking in consideration the county, taking in consideration the state, but the most that can be done is this, and this is what we did, and not it be a glancing thing. Let's see if we can do this, or we can see we can do that. Because in the end, their lives are being tremendously impacted simply because something is coming their way they didn't ask for. And that is, people now see at 10th Street, you talk about that morning traffic, it is so backed up on 10th Street trying to get on I-95. What's the shortcut? Natura.
So, Commissioner, I hear what you're saying, and I think the reason that the neighbors came up with the thought of a second left turn lane is because they see people doing what you just said. People are in that middle lane where you're supposed to be going north on Fairway, but nobody really goes north on Fairway. So they cut in at the last minute and make the left turn. I've heard from folks, and I'm not surprised to hear it. So clearly what we need to do is we need to make more capacity for people to make that left turn from northbound Natura to westbound Hillsborough. So the question is, how's the best way to do that? So the initial thought of a second left turn lane, I could see why people thought of that, because that's what people are doing now. But if it's going to get fewer cars through the intersection doing it that way, and that's what I think Joaquin was trying to show, and we can get more cars through the intersection by making the one left turn lane longer, where you have an opportunity to turn on the left arrow, but you also have an opportunity to turn on the solid green when no one's coming at you. And if not that many cars are coming southbound from Fairway, then is going to be opportunity to make the left turn on the solid green as well as the green arrow. So, and it's not just our traffic engineer that said this, your traffic engineer agreed that this is the better approach. Now, let me say this, we'll do it either way because we're the ones that are going to make the improvement, but we don't think the county and the DOT will approve the split face timing because they're trying to get rid of those. We think we can show that we can have the number of cars that actually need to make that movement doing it with our longer left turn lane. I know it sounds counterintuitive. You think, gee, wouldn't it be better if there's two lanes going at the same time? But then the problem is when the left turn green arrow goes off, they can't go anymore. If we do it with the one turn lane, they can still go when the solid green is there. And if it's true that not that many cars are coming southbound from Fairway, then there should be a good opportunity to do that. And that's what the numbers are showing. But no question about it, people are cutting in now because they go in that middle lane. There's hardly anybody in it because they're not going north on Fairway. And then they cut through and make that left turn. And if we give them more room to get in the proper lane and make the left turn, they won't have to do that anymore. That's what we're trying to do.
If we leave it the way that it is, we're conceding to some extent that there's going to be a problem there at some point. I personally have witnessed just, so many potential accidents that people just, turn at the last second. So at some point, something's going to happen. Even if we're leaving it, we can say that the flow of traffic is going to be better, safer. That's the numbers. But realistically, that's what we have now is what is being explained.
If we do nothing and it stays like it is, it's already a problem. Everyone has acknowledged that. Even if we don't build anything, the way that intersection's working now is a problem because people are doing what we just described and making that illegal left turn from the wrong lane. So it needs to be fixed, whether we build this or not. And so we're committed to fixing it and to making that improvement before we open the doors on the new residential building. So before our traffic arrives, the improvements will be in the ground.
I'm just concerned that when we began the project over on 10th Street, that's a big project that's going to be going in over there. And if we don't make a major impact, it's just going to be even more of a nightmare. And I just don't know that this is going to solve the problem. And this is a problem that the resident did not ask for. Their area was quiet. It's just that drivers say, hey, rather than waiting this long line here to get on I-95 from 10th, let's zoom over to Nature. And it's become a regular thoroughfare now. It's a regular thoroughfare. So it's just, I just think that we need more thought to this to try to alleviate what we know is coming from the 10th Street project.
And I will tell you that the way the traffic analysis is done, it recognizes everything that's on the ground today, but it also recognizes anything that's under construction that's coming. So, that was part of how they looked at this. It's pretty straightforward, this intersection. It's a four-way intersection. There's certain movements that not very many people make. Not too many go north and south through it. Most of them are heading towards I-95, whether it's from Fairway or whether from ours. That's why our northbound to westbound left turn is so important. For Fairway, it's probably more the southbound to right, westbound right turn. But for us, it's that left turn. It needs to be fixed. There's only two ways to do it. You either make the one turn lane longer or you make a second left turn lane. If you believe the professional traffic engineers from the county and the DOT and the others, the answer would be the longer left turn lane with the standard signal timing instead of the split phase. It'll work better. It'll get more people through the intersection. That's what the numbers tell us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mealy. Couple questions just to make sure I understand this and maybe break this down a little more simple. Obviously, the lane lengthening is going to happen no matter what.
Right.
Okay, so whether you go with two lanes, two turn lanes, or one lane lengthening is going to occur, which is desperately needed over there.
Yeah, I don't know if it gets longer or if it's just because it's an extra one. I'm not sure about that, but we'll check it. It may that it gets longer.
One of the comments that was made was that the lengthening is to accommodate what is anticipated to be all of the left-hand turns that will be needed.
Right. The traffic analysis that was done is for the entire PDD, not just the phase one. It's looking at everything.
Okay, so the lane lengthening, so we extended that lane as far as we possibly can?
Yes.
Okay.
Both the one on Hillsborough and the one on Natura, we're lengthening the maximum distance we can. Because remember, on Hillsborough, for example, you have a left turn lane going the other way. So you can only lengthen it as much until you hit the other one. So yes, we're lengthening the maximum distance that we can.
All right, so it's at the maximum that it can go on the lane lengthening.
Right.
So in choice number one, with a left-hand turn, with a single lane approach that you talked about really the three phases. One is a red light.
Right.
You can't turn at all. Okay, if you're going northbound. I'm dumbing down all your hard work as much as I can.
No, I
Sorry.
just wanted to make one correction. The one that's being maxed out as much as possible is the west to south. The north to west, it can be lengthened more. It was based on all the projections. We need so many feet of additional lengthening, but there's room for more if needed.
Okay.
So if you want more, we'll give you more.
Well, that would be something to look at. I think the more people you can accommodate into a left-hand turn lane there would make a lot more sense,
So
in my opinion.
by the time we come back for the next reading, we'll figure out how long we have it now. We'll figure out how much longer we can make it and how many more cars that would fit. And we'll talk to the staff before the second reading and work out those
Because at
details.
some point, there's always a bottleneck where there's people going right and the few people that might go north. That left-hand turn lane, the more people you can file into there, I think it's going to alleviate some of that congestion or that bottlenecking a little bit. But
I agree.
just to make sure I understand, so with the one left-hand turn lane,
Mhm.
there's 3 cycles. One cycle is complete red light. You can't make the left-hand turn. This is making a western turn towards the west on Hillsborough going north.
So when
Nature.
Hillsborough Boulevard, east and west is green,
Yeah.
you're red, both for Fairway and for Natura.
So that's your one phase.
That's the first
Your
one.
second phase that you have with the one left-hand turn lane is that you have a hard green arrow
Correct.
to make a left-hand turn
Right.
and a hard green to go north.
Correct.
Okay. And well, you have a left-hand turn and then you don't have a straight green. You have a
So-
left-hand turn green And you're waiting, you're yielding to the people that are trying to make an east turn heading south.
So if I can break down that phase, let
Yeah.
me do it this way. So first you'll have left turns for Natura North to Hillsborough West, Fairway South to Hillsborough East. Those will be happening at the same time.
Right.
And then after that, it'll be solid green and you can go straight or left, both
Right.
from Fairway and from
So
Natura.
to your point was you have an opportunity to make a left-hand turn in 2 out of the 3 phases. that
That's
would occur at
correct.
that
So
light.
you have more green time, as they say,
Exactly.
to make the left
And we
turn.
know that the north-south back and forth to that intersection is very light. And
Correct.
we all know that.
If
No
the-
matter what. I
If the
think to-
north-south was busy, our argument wouldn't be as good. But
Right.
because the north-south is not, it gives you a lot of green time on the solid green ball to make
Sure.
your left turn.
To Commissioner Preston's point, we're not going to be able to regulate stupidity. No matter what, someone's going to, whether it's one lane or not, someone's still going to make that turn. Especially if there's not a lot of traffic and it's green, someone's going to go, that's going to happen. It happens now. It will happen no matter what happens. I can't regulate stupidity. There's always going to be some idiot who thinks that they can do that. And they're going to do that no matter what we do.
Right.
That's one section. So if we go with the 2 lanes, we have the hard red stop that we know.
Right.
The next one you have is a hard green, is a green turn lane, a green turn light, right?
Right.
And that green turn light, once it ends, it becomes another hard red light for only north-south traffic,
That's correct.
which we know doesn't happen a lot.
Right.
So what you're saying is despite the fact that 2 lanes sounds like you can fit a whole lot more people through that one single cycle, really having the 1 lane lengthen as much as it possibly could be, you're going to be able to get more people through 2 different light cycles.
That's the idea.
Okay,
Exactly.
So that's what you're saying.
Correct.
So I understand that.
Right.
Okay.
And-
I mean, that makes sense. I
And the
get
way,
it.
and the way this is looked at, if you went down to Commercial Boulevard where the county has the building where all the
Mm-hmm.
traffic lights are there, they'll tell you how many seconds of green time for that left turn arrow, how many seconds of green time for the straight through, and how many seconds of red and you're waiting. So the idea is to maximize the number of seconds where you can move through the intersection. And the 1 lane with the green arrow and the green ball gives you more seconds of green time than the 2 lanes would.
Correct. Okay. So that makes sense to me to help alleviate this, because here's the bottom line in this land use change. Something needs to be done to revitalize that area. This is an improvement. And really, you want something like this as close to a major artery like I-95 as possible, because the further away from that artery, putting residential like it is, the more you're going to clog up your lanes of traffic. So when we look at some of these projects come before us in Federal Highway and these other areas, the further away from we are from the interstate, it's harder to accommodate that.
Well,
Most people are hopping on 95.
Right, you're certainly
most part.
traveling further on Hillsborough Boulevard to get to the expressway if you're over at US 1 or Powerline Road or wherever.
Correct. Now your your density on this is only 21.8.
Yeah, it's 21.82.
21.82. So that is significantly less if we look at another project that we just shot down over on Federal Highway, which was, we were praying to get 25.
I think that was 49 on that one. I
Right,
believe.
49 is what we're looking at. So this is a significantly less impactful project that's going in over there with those improvements. And obviously, if we make those improvements, when you add residential in there, you want to make sure that the existing conditions, if it changes to make it worse, that you can make traffic conditions improve to be able to accommodate those changes.
Right, and we have, at the second reading of the rezoning, in addition to the site plan, we also have the development agreement, which is required for every PDD. And all of the improvements we're talking about are in that development agreement, and they dictate that they must be done before we get the CO for this residential building.
That's okay. So looking at that, like Hillsborough Boulevard is an F-graded road.
Correct.
10th Street, every single Broward County major artery east of 95, almost every single one is an F-graded road. It's F.
And some of them go all the way to Dixie as F graded, some of them go all the way to US 1, some of them go a shorter distance, but when you
And if
go
there
off
were
of
F
95
minuses,
east-
they'd be getting F minuses.
Right, now, on the
So-
other hand, when you get a little further away,
Right.
it tends to get a little bit better. But
Yes.
right at the interchange, not unusual, that's where it's
Right.
busiest.
So obviously, I think all of us are not looking at the fact that because it's an F-graded road, we should not make changes. We know that development occurs all the time most of the roads in Broward County and in Palm Beach County and in Miami and Dade County are F-graded roads on these major thoroughfares. But we know for sure that Broward County, anything east of 95 on these major thoroughfares are what's
Right.
considered.
So what we
Effort.
try to do is we look at how do we alleviate the impact that we are adding? If we're adding 10 cars to an intersection and the intersection's over capacity, how do we fix it to take care of those 10 cars? I think in this case, we're taking care of more than the 10 cars. We're taking care of some of the existing problem, even though we're not there yet. And particularly if we make this Natura left turn lane longer, which we're willing to do, it'll work even better.
I mean, this is the type of zoning that quite frankly should have been there from the very beginning. And if we look at historically at this section, it needs an improvement. And this could be the improvement that we need over there. So I think the mitigation's being done, and I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the ideas of the residents and try to accommodate it and put that in there and put them in application to see if it works.
Well, I
And-
thought that the discussion with the residents was very constructive because they actually had specific examples of problems and proposed a specific solution that we were able to work with and see, you know, the 2 lanes versus the 1 lane, but at least saying, this is what we need. We need a better intersection approach on Natura at Hillsborough. Now, the other thing we talked about with the neighbors is there was a crosswalk we were asked to put in near the corner of Natura Boulevard and Natura Avenue. And the neighbors said that they thought it was dangerous. I think they might be right. We went to the county and talked to them about it, and the county was not encouraging about that location for a crosswalk.
Not a shocker.
So what we said was, if the county will approve a crosswalk somewhere along Natura Boulevard adjacent to our property, we'll put it in. But if they say it's not safe, then obviously we won't put it in. And that was a discussion we had with the neighbors as well.
Is the county's pushback on that crosswalk idea because of its proximity to the intersection?
I think it's a couple of things. It's next to a curve, so you can't see the cars coming. It's at an intersection, and generally, if cars are moving fast, you're not going to put a crosswalk at an intersection unless there's a traffic light so that the cars would stop.
Yeah. I know how the county is, we've had other areas of the city, we've been trying to get crosswalks in, and we know that,
You probably got the same answer, I'm guessing.
yeah, which is always no from the county. So that makes sense. Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner Preston, one more time.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In the end, you know, the things that you're saying may be actually correct. What I just want to make clear is that the most thought that can be put in prior to doing anything so that the residents see that wherever we end up, they are comfortable, because they may not get what they want. It may be that you're right with what you're saying. Certainly there's some logic to it. There's logic to a longer time. One, you got 2 opportunities to turn. And if that all works out, you know, that's great. But there's a lot of things that sometime in perception is not actually the reality. And it doesn't mean that it won't have glitches. We understand that. But I think it's really important that we all do everything that we can to keep a project of this size. This is a big project. And that we consider the residents and what will be low impact to them, people who've been living there for years, that we do everything that we can not to invade that residence.
I agree. And what I would ask, this is the first reading of the rezoning tonight. We have to come back for a second reading with the site plan. We can meet again with the neighbors to go over these issues. We'll look at how much longer we can lengthen that left turn lane, and we'll make sure that we're addressing these issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hudak?
I understand that the county would not approve a crosswalk. Was there any consideration for putting an overpass there so that there still is an egress opportunity?
The county rule is that you must show that there's 20 people crossing in 1 hour in order to get a crosswalk. We're never going to get that because it's not safe to cross there now. So 20 people aren't going to be crazy enough to do it.
I can find you 20 people that are crazy.
Okay.
Not here tonight,
Right.
but I think I can find.
That's what you have to have in order to get a crosswalk.
Or an overpass?
I don't know about an overpass. I mean, if you're going over the right of way, I'm sure they're gonna want some justification for it. Yeah. I mean, where do you see an overpass? You see it across from the swap shop on Sunrise Boulevard, which is a 6-lane road and people are parking across the street. And so they give them an overpass.
Or where there's new residents over to a park that's right across the street?
Right. Well, we're hoping our residents can cross at Hillsborough Boulevard. Their building is right up on Hillsborough. There's no reason they can't.
Thank you, Mr. Mealy.
Thank you.
Commissioner Drosky, then Vice Mayor Parnas.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, this is the gateway to our city. When you come off of I-95 and enter Deerfield Beach, Hillsborough Boulevard, this complex, as I'm going to call it, I mean, this is the gateway to our city. And I think everyone would agree that it needs a major facelift. And if you disagree during public comment, I'd like to know why, but I think it needs a major facelift. It's dated, and it definitely needs an improvement. I think what we're all talking about tonight is traffic, and in particular, the northbound movement on Natura Boulevard turning west onto Hillsborough Boulevard. That seems to be the bugaboo in all of this particular project, because the other movements, I think, take care of themselves during the lighting cycles. But the movement going northbound on Natura to go west, that's where it backs up. I think we've all individually seen it. So whatever we can do to, and it was counterintuitive at first until the engineer made his presentation about how the one lane works more effective than the dual lane. So I appreciate you considering all the different possibilities. But whatever we can do to improve that northbound to westbound movement, and you said you were going to consider extending that lane as
correct.
Extend that as far as you possibly can. Extend it all the way to 10th Street if you have to. But that's really, I think, where the focus, where we need to help the residents is in that movement there to eliminate that traffic. So that would be one of, my concerns too. But if you've agreed to look into it, this is first reading for rezoning. But I would like you to look into extending that, as far as possible.
We will. And when we figure out the new distance, we'll incorporate it into the development agreement. So it specifically says, lengthen it to X number of feet, whatever it is. So we will do that.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Parnas.
We had a discussion not too long ago about another project with a traffic problem. And I can remember one or two commissioners that sat up here said, I know there's going to be a problem, but we'll solve it if it happens. I don't see this any different. This is pretty well planned. This has been studied. Traffic engineers think they have the solution, and I think they have. But let's assume they've made a mistake a year from now or 2 years from now. Things can always be corrected and improved. And with that, I think you've done an excellent job in explaining how to keep traffic flowing in the best possible way onto Hillsborough Boulevard without it backing up to 10th Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to open it to the public. For those of you who are new here, I'll just kind of explain the way it would work. You come up, give your name and address for the record. And if you have questions, we'll take down what your questions are. We'll answer them at the end for you. We won't answer them in the middle while you're speaking. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And if you'd like an additional minute to make your point, I can grant that. And that's all we need. So if open it up to the public right now.
Good evening, Gina Johnston, 500 Southwest Natura Avenue here in Deerfield. We're the neighbors that Mr. Mealy's talking about. Pardon me. Thank you, Commissioner Preston, for taking the time to go out and see the intersection there. But everything that Mr. Mealy brought to you tonight is not really the whole story. I don't know if you have the notes from the planning meeting, but we attended the planning meeting. The planning meeting, they were mandated at that planning meeting to go back to the county and come up with a better traffic pattern. So this wasn't all of their planning. This was part of what the prior planning board said, we will approve it with the condition that you'll go back and find a solution for these roads. So the bigger issue, other than that intersection, is let's talk about that elongated left turn lane. Can't fix stupid, as you said. I'm not a traffic engineer, but one thing that I did find out through all of this is if traffic doesn't move at the same speed through an intersection and there are gaps of people, the light stops. So everybody that's sitting on their cell phone waiting in that long line is not going with traffic. So what we get, 3 cars go through that light. So by elongating that lane, we're only making the time much longer, causing more people to get upset, pull out, and make that illegal left turn. Now I'd like to address the actual site plan that you will be reviewing at the second reading. Our biggest cause for concern is that this entire development is going to exit southbound on Natura Boulevard. As Mr. Mealy represented, there are 2 cuts, 2 openings in that median, one at the park and one at Natura Avenue. 360 units, whether they're 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom, are going to bring approximately 720 to 1,000 cars on that road. They're going to want to go northbound on Hillsborough. How do they do that? They go southbound on Natura Boulevard, make a U-turn at the park, or they make a U-turn at the already dangerous intersection of Natura Boulevard and Natura Avenue, where you can't see cars coming, where BSO is out there every 2 weeks ticketing people who are going 50 miles an hour. So in addition to that, their plan also said they'll have a morning commute and an afternoon commute. But what they forgot to mention is all the people that are going to be utilizing the retail space there, the doctor's offices, the proposal that they mentioned to us about bringing in restaurants. This is going to be traffic all day, every day. And in rush hour, you can't get out now. Imagine an elongated left turn lane with 1,000 cars trying to make a U-turn on that street to go northbound on Hillsborough. Last thing that pardon me?
Would you like another minute?
Yes, please. The last thing that I do want to bring up is the fact that the Fairway Drive on the other side, those units across the street are not at full capacity. They only have one way in and one way out. So the idea that we're going to be able to turn and yield on a left light is not going to work in the future. And my last thing is we have a wall that was built on Natura Boulevard, which was done with a 40-year impact study, how it was going to be put there for soundproofing and all of that. If this is a problem in 2 or 3 years when this development is finished, there's no way to widen Natura Boulevard. So it's really important that you consider what's happening right now. And please speak to Mr. Bennett and Mr. Chauncey, who told us in the meeting that if they drive that road every day, and Mr. Bennett said, if I had an option to live in Natura, I wouldn't because what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Charles Ryan, and I live at 512 Natura Avenue. And I'd like to thank you for having us here to talk about this. But my biggest concerns are for the safety of all who will be affected by this project. The one thing I feel when projections are presented, that the citizens that have been living close to a new project for many years are the last ones to be considered. We are the ones that have paid our taxes that help Deerfield Beach to accomplish the success that it has had. Hopefully, our safety is being very strongly considered. I have another little thought that came to my mind while I was looking at this. On the northbound Natura, having all lanes, the right turn, the center lane, and the left turn all go at one time, holding the southbound lane up. And then because they've got plenty of lanes already over there, and let them go for a shorter period of time than what it does for us for that. And that way it doesn't make any difference where you're at. You get the same amount of time to go. I've got over 2 million miles on the road, so this is, and I've seen that happen here in Florida, where you let all lanes go and then you let the other lanes go. Just an idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Preston, for your.
Hi, my name is Pamela Etheridge, 608 Southwest Natura Boulevard. I am in full agreement with them, and actually Gina said most of what I was going to say, and I would like to thank Commissioner Preston for acknowledging that we have become a throughway now. Everybody comes through. My concern is everybody is just envisioning our regular traffic when they say there is no traffic across the street. Well, I have been on that road a few times for doctor's appointments or whatever when we are backed up. And because the left lane is too long past where it's cut out, people go straight and take a U-turn across Hillsborough and come back. And if we get more traffic, we're going to have a bigger issue with that. But their traffic plan is really kind of telling us, oh, but we don't have any traffic there, but we do when it gets busy. And with this new complex, we certainly are going to have a lot more traffic and a lot more U-turns because they're coming over here trying to take a left. They've got to come down Natura and turn around in one of our breakthroughs. And it's just going to be a disaster. That concerns me. The bigger concern for me is we've already agreed that they're going to build the freeway, you know, over on 10th so that it makes life easier, but that's going to take a few years. Well, when it's taking a few years, we already have chaos and now we have more traffic. And our whole Natura is all 55 plus. And we have a lot of real plus. So we don't want to become shut-ins, you know, because we can't get out, can't go to the doctor. Or my doctor is 10 minutes from me, but now I'm going to leave an hour early, you know. So those are our bigger concerns, is that these two projects are going to intertwine and hit us hard. And we didn't buy in any other area because we really liked the quietness of Deerfield, Natura area. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. How are you?
Good.
Tom Caputi, 405 Nature Avenue. You know, I understand about growth and increasing our tax base. And I think these guys do have hey, develop that property, make it nice. Development is good and growth is good as long as it's well planned, well thought out, and doesn't have a negative impact on the quality of life in Deerfield Beach. Now, this zoning change that they're requesting, I believe they're asking to increase that building to 80 feet, which currently zone, I believe the maximum is 75 feet. Is that correct?
Cool. We'll get an answer for you.
Okay. Well, it's going to end up being a 100-foot building because by the time you finish, you're going to have a parapet or a wall 5 or 6 feet on the roof with electrical and air conditioning. And there's probably going to be 2 elevators in that building. And the elevator shafts are going to be another 15 or 20 feet above the top of the building. So years ago, back the pre-Al Capolini days, when I used to come to these meetings, there was a maximum 5-story limit on these residential properties. And that's gone up considerably. So I would just keep that in mind, that it's going to be a 100-foot residential building because it's an 8-story apartment house. I'm not going to discuss traffic. I think you guys get the picture with the problems with traffic. Something else I'd like to consider, or like you to consider, is the underground infrastructure, specifically water lines, drainage, and sewer lines. 25 years ago, I stood in front of a meeting and said, please don't let Deerfield Beach become Fort Lauderdale. with the problems that are going on down there with the congestion, the high rises. Just last year, sewer lines exploding. Brown water coming out of the taps. Why? Because they've overdeveloped it. And there's no place for rainwater to go anymore because everything's paved over. So growth is good. And we're having more people move down here, improves the tax base. We understand that. But every once in a while, you got to say no, or you got to say, hold on. I think you understand what I'm talking about. But what do those sewer lines and those water lines, I don't know what the plans are and if they're going to put all new water or sewer underneath there. But if not, those lines have been down there for 50 years. We having main water line breakages now. And I just talked to Mr. Preston about this the other day when it happened. The valves are so old, you can't shut the water off all the way. So underground infrastructure is very important because when you think about it, 360 units, you're going to have probably 1,000 toilets flushing every day. You're going to have 2 sinks. One more minute. 2 sinks at least per apartment. So that's a lot of water, not counting showers, washing machines, bathtubs. I'm sorry. Yeah, dishwashers. So these are things to look at. And then finally, the last point, our mandatory allocated parking spaces from 1985, which had a slight update in 2017 of 1 space, 1.5, 2, or 2.5 spaces, which is what the mandatory parking allocation is for a unit like this. There are no apartments that I know of, 2-bedroom apartments that have only 2 people living in it anymore. Rent is so astronomical. These places are going to have 3 and 4 and more vehicles, especially a 3-bedroom apartment. These parking allocations, these codes that we have on the books now from 1985, which had a slight update in 2017, need to be revisited. Seriously. It's just not realistic right now. So other than that, I think they,
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Jim McGuire. I live at 608 Southwest Natura Boulevard. And I'd like to get back on to that turn lane on Natura Boulevard going west on Hillsborough. As we extend that, the closer we get to Natura Avenue. And at that point, people from Natura Avenue trying to make that right-hand turn, get into that turn lane. At the same time, you've got the new apartments coming out of that egress out of their property, trying to get onto the same turn lane. That single lane. So you're going to have a mess right there. Now, I like the idea of the 2-turn lane because you're going to get a lot more volume of cars through it and have movement so that we can get out of Natura Avenue and the new egress out of the new property. And another problem we've got with this backup is with emergency vehicles. We've got to be concerned because we have ambulances in our property all the time. We would like to have them get there before it's too late. But everything else has been covered very, very well, except I don't think the people of Natura have been looked at like, how do you get out onto the highway? I mean, out onto Natura Boulevard when there's all the other exits we have down the road coming out of the different cul-de-sacs and out of the condo buildings. They're all trying to get out onto that road. It's bad now because of these people taking the shortcut. When you add all the traffic backing up from there, it's just going to start blocking off all of those. And in the morning, in the evening, it's just a horror show right now. And it's not just because of the shortcut. When you add another 380 units, it's just going to cause more of a backup. So I know how to solve that one, but I think the 2 turn lanes is because they're going to turn anyway, as you well know. People are just going to say, I'm not waiting. They're just going to go make the turn. I was almost wiped out this morning. I made the turn to go on the highway, to go on 95. and someone came on the straight through lane and just came right over. And luckily I saw him and he went in front of me and I followed him on. But that always doesn't happen. You're gonna get some person that's not as conscious and they're gonna plow right into him. Well, that's all I got to say. Hey, I beat the clock.
Perfect.
Dan Hirsch, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. It is truly amazing to me to watch what this attorney tries to get away with in fooling the Deerfield Beach taxpayers. First, he uses a traffic study that is almost 3 years old, and the date used to measure 9 different intersection turning movement counts is April 7th, 2021. Does anybody remember what was going on back then? I know. It was some little health issue called COVID, and it kept everyone and their cars mostly off the streets. Then the lawyer says he wants an 80-foot tall building and only a 20-foot setback to Hillsborough Boulevard when 50 feet is required. The lawyer says this is needed to, and I quote, to maximize the development potential of the property. I guess the lawyer is blind to the fact that there are no 80-foot buildings anywhere near this proposed apartment building. I also find it fascinating that the building of the apartment building will be phase 1 of the redevelopment, and the office buildings will be redone at a later time. I propose the city require the developer to redo the office buildings first to ensure that they actually get redone. If the multifamily comes first, there's a very good chance the office buildings will never get redone. The most laughable part of all are the crumbs the attorney is prepared to give the taxpayers for allowing this huge rezoning to go through. First, you must remember, when these 360 units are built out, the total value of the project will be somewhere north of $70 million. If you added up the value of all the goodies he is proposing, including the 3 pictures, you would have to stretch to get to a total valuation of $500,000. All this for a $70 million project? Such a deal. Finally, I don't want to hear anyone up on the dais cry out that we must approve this rezoning because we really need the extra property tax income, and we are going to have to start cutting basic services if we don't start growing our tax base rapidly. I say this because just a few months ago, our soon-to-be departed chief financial officer told us that we have the largest reserves in many, many years, and the city's financial strength was very strong. She went on to say our financial strength will make it much easier to float the millions of dollars in bonds that the city will need shortly to redo the water plant. This rezoning application is just another example of the city caving into the demands of large developers with absolutely no regard for the quality of life issues that this 360-unit apartment building will bring to the surrounding neighborhood. May I have one more minute?
Yes.
But hey, that is okay to this commission because none of them live anywhere near this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Roger Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street, Deerfield Beach, Florida. I think enough has already been said. However, there's one thing I haven't heard anybody say anything about. If we do pass this, what kind of variances are we going to have to give again? We've been bait and switched before. People make the city commissioners promises, and then something changes along the way. My biggest concern is that variances shouldn't be given on a regular basis. And if we do have to make changes, let the developer make the changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bob DeChristopher, 517 Northeast 6th Avenue. Just a couple of questions and comments. And I agree this may be a good location for a mixed-use project. my argument against that, however, is that it's always being proposed by a developer for some reason. If the city thinks there are locations within the city that should be used for mixed use, the city should be going out there, doing a study and identifying to the public, to us, where we think those are. Not a developer coming in and tell us what we need to do. My other question is like on traffic quickly, if Natura Boulevard gets a lengthened turn lane and you increase that green time, Hillsborough is a level service F, not Natura. So that means the traffic on Hillsborough is going to degrade, which right now already backs through Martin Luther King and a PM peak hour. So they're going to make that worse if you give more green time off of Natura. The other thing on the 80-foot, I understand the existing building is non-conforming 80 feet, and their reasoning to go 80 foot on the residential is to match it. I've never in my life as a government employee have heard the way to cure a nonconformity is to increase it with another nonconformity. I've never heard that before. One of my bigger questions, and I apologize for not seeing the traffic study. One of my bigger questions is, we're saying, 21.86 units per acre. Well, that's not or that is including the 240,000 square foot office retail building on the same property. So at some future date, if the developer decides to sell the 360 units and bifurcate that property, then all of a sudden, now we go to 42 units per acre because you've bifurcated and you sold the residential portion off, unless there's some kind of document that city, a declaration or something that will not allow him to bifurcate the property and sell off the residential. Of course, decks can always be modified. So that is another problem. To me, it's ridiculous to say it's 21.86 because it's just the portion that the residential is on. So then if they do sell it off, now it's 42, 43 units per acre. And if we go 80 feet, again, on the Live Local, we know within a quarter of a mile, half a mile, whatever the new regulations are, any other building can now be 80 feet. So to say we're going to fix a nonconformity by making the next building nonconform is interesting. And then in some of the documentation, we always go to the comp plan. I don't know of any residents other than developers and realtors that have come to the city and said, we need 10,000 more residents here. And we need them, right? It's already a level service F. Let's block up the roadway even more. It's nice. And if it's true, we need 10,000 residents. I'd like to see the comp plan that says we have a number. And then going forward, how do you stop it? How do you stop the Publix Plaza out at Hillsborough and Powerline from redeveloping? Because they got 10 acres of surface parking. Publix downtown, 5 acres of public surface parking. Yeah, please.
You want another, would you like another minute?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
You have to request it instead of keep talking
I'm
through
sorry.
it. That's okay.
How do you objectively deny any other project that's currently B2 from going mixed use PDD? And a lot of the comments I saw in the staff report is, how do you justify the PDD? What's the public benefit? Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to read the entire thing to see what the answer was, but I don't think there's a good one, to be honest with you. So that's it for now. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions. I'll submit them in writing because I can't do it in 3 minutes. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online? Ms. Freitag?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. I don't even know where to begin on this one. So I'll start with one thing that I found interesting regarding Mr. Mealy's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points on his initial slide. If we don't increase the population in the area, then there's no need to increase drainage. There are plenty of sidewalks around that area. With the
Ms. Freitag, could you speak up? We're having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry. There are plenty of sidewalks in that area. And if the city feels that we need to put more sidewalks in, then we should do it as a city. Contribution to Oviedo McKeithen Park. I think you're a little late on that, and I don't think $200,000 is enough. $500 per location for it per individual residence. For how many years? Is that just a one-time pay? That's not nearly enough also, the $180,000. What I love is the pictures that he depicts on the parking, on the turn in on Hillsborough, don't even depict Hillsborough. They just show a little bit of a parking lot. So back to the rest of it. I appreciate Dennis Mealy's approach, and yes, we do need to make a difference at that intersection. But adding thousands of cars a day to that intersection is not the answer. Slide 33 would not allow people to turn right if somebody in front of them wants to go straight. So they will be stuck at that intersection until the light changes completely. Does that work well when you have this much traffic approaching that intersection? You're talking about thousands of cars and trips per day. Please provide the totals that you are noting in your traffic studies, because you do not mention any real numbers, just generalizations. Where you say very few people are coming off of Fairfield Drive and traveling south, with all the cars going to hop on the Sawgrass, they have to go south down to 10th, down Natura. I think Mr. Mealy's comment that nobody goes north across the intersection is absolutely inaccurate as well, because employees and guests of the DoubleTree and Marriott and Fairfield, that are also 3 different hotels on that street, travel north from 10th and south to 10th on a daily basis. I love how Mr. Mealy is saying that they're willing to fix our traffic problems, but they're going to add so many cars on a daily basis that it's going to negate any great traffic congestion that he thinks he's going to diminish. Who's taken into account the cars that are going to be turning off of Hillsborough into the parking lot? Currently, there are a decent amount of cars turning into the buildings in the hotel at this point. I know, I was there today. If you add an additional 360 residents on top of additional business buildings, where are the cars going to stop when they're trying to pull onto Hillsborough, off of Hillsborough onto Hillsborough from 95? When Mr. Mealy says he wants to take care of 10 cars, but what about 1,000 cars? This is not a low impact project in any way. Lastly, how many residents actually showed up for any of the meetings that you were promoting, including all the residents that live at Tivoli? Most of the residents that live on Natura are seniors and will definitely be impacted by the additional traffic that you want to put in. When the commission says, well, it's only the first step to approve this PPD change, this zoning change.
Would you like another minute?
Yes, please, and thank you. Buckle up, buttercups, because it's not going to get better. This is the commission saying, well, we'll make it everybody else's deal, make everybody else deal with it, and then we'll see what happens. If we fix it now and do not allow the change of the zoning now, it will absolutely fix the problem later. Keep it business, keep out residential, and let's keep our city moving forward as the great city that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online? Okay, I've got Mr. Schnetzy. We'll let you go, and then we'll go with Gwen.
Thank you. Daniel Shinesky, 34 Keswick B, Century Village, District 3, Deerfield Beach, 33442. Several years ago, in Century Village, they put a new community called Sandpoint, and I remember a lot of the naysayers were against that community. They were saying, now Sandpoint is between Hillsborough and Southwest 10th. They had to put in a new turning lane, and everyone was saying that will clog up Military Road. Well, it's been years later, and it's been fine. It hasn't clogged up. I go by the area that they're talking about, Natura Boulevard and Hillsborough, and I see half-empty office buildings. I see an area that's stagnant. Now, Deerfield Beach was incorporated in 1925. We're coming up to the 2nd century of Deerfield Beach. It seems every time there's some sort of project, there's always a naysayer. When they made Deerfield Beach in 1925, there were barely any residents, barely any property, and everyone seemed to be happy. But we have to move forward. We can't be scared of change. The developer is willing to work with the neighborhood. So I am in favor of this project as long as the developer listens to the neighborhood and works with them. And I think we can move forward on this. We don't want Deerfield Beach to die on the vine, which is what will happen if every single time there's some sort of development project and it gets shot down, we don't move forward. We'll die on the vine. That's the way I feel.
Excuse me. Excuse me, guys.
Don't do that.
Everybody's respectful, all right? You might not like his opinion, he's allowed to share it. If not, we'll have you leave when you share your opinion on the opposite side. Gwen Clark Reed, please.
Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way. I don't know how much consideration has been given to the use of the park. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You might want to speak up a little bit better, though, please. I think you went the opposite way.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I don't know how much consideration has been, or thought has been given to the use of Oviedo McKeithen complex and the exit from that complex onto Natura. I don't know how you're talking about lengthening the lane there. How does it impact the activity at the park? And just what is the number of cars we're talking about when we're talking about increasing the lane, and how many more cars we can put in there? I guess I'm the only person that uses the Fairway South from the north to the south across Hillsborough, coming from the tech center. But I know that the activities there generate usage on the roadway as well. I just think this isn't a very well thought out plan as far as what's happening with the traffic. I think we need to go back if we're going to move forward with this whole renovation. A lot more study needs to be given and thought to what's happening with the traffic over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Anyone else here?
Christina D. Christopher, 517 Northeast 6th Avenue. I just wanted to go over a couple of things in the actual development plan applications and the comments that start on page 51 for the PDD zoning district requirements. There's several comments where the staff is saying that they're having a hard time identifying the public benefit with this development as opposed to any other improvements that would be required as any other development. So the separation between what the PDD is doing extra versus what would be done if the property was developed without needing all of these extra PDD exceptions. So I'm not sure why it was approved at planning and zoning if none of these comments are addressed, because the only thing that I saw was the developer kind of going double down. It's compliant because it's compliant. It agrees with the land use, but they changed the land use for this project. So they just keep making it agree with itself. And a lot of these improvements are sidewalks and curbs and drainage. And I just don't see how the public benefit of sidewalks and drainage and curbs and all these other roadway improvements are justifying the cost of adding over 1,000 trips a day onto this. And particularly the development agreement says that 1 year after the final certificate of occupancy for the residential building is going to be finished, then they'll do a traffic analysis to see how they can mitigate the traffic signal timing changes. And 1 year after that CO has been issued is a really long time, number one. And number two, if the traffic is so severe that there's a problem, what are you going to do after it's already done? There's no recourse once that's been finished. And then the residents for that whole entire year, without any traffic mitigation or timing signals, will have to just deal with that traffic for a year outside of the construction. And if attenuating an extra 1,000 trips a day was as easily fixable as changing the traffic signal timing, I don't see why the city or the county can't figure out how to do that without adding 1,000 additional trips because the traffic is already really bad there. I think that's it. Thank you.
Good. I don't want to end at 13. That was an unlucky number. Good.
Hi, my name is April Bolowich, 899 Northeast 4th Street, Deerfield Beach. I agree with everything that mostly everybody said that went before me, so I'm not going to cover the traffic and everything because I have an immediate family who lives in Natura and I am concerned about their safety. One of the terms we use in safety business is something called attractive nuisance. And when you bring in a large apartment complex with families and children, and there's a park across the street, there's also, don't forget, a senior community. So you're going to have a triangle of activity where you don't see much activity right now because those businesses are empty. There's really nothing there for people to go to. That corner is or the turn is I should say a curve on Natura Boulevard. It's kind of a blind curve when you're coming out in several areas there. It's unsafe already, but when you add an apartment building full of people and businesses such as restaurants and doctors' offices below that, you're creating a situation where people are going to be crossing the street and it's not safe. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Jeannie Danner, 530 Southwest Natura Avenue. So every day I leave, I'm on the avenue and the boulevard. I'm pulling out of the avenue, making a left or right onto Natura Boulevard. It's a nightmare with the curve. We all know it. Okay. They're coming around way too fast. Occasionally we have some officers out there slowing them down, but really making a right, you've got to watch. You have no idea how fast they're coming around the curve, and making a left. I usually stop in the median because I'm halfway across, you know, I'm safe. I'm halfway. And then I'm going to make my left. And I can't imagine
to do that,
something, well, you know what I mean? Okay. All right. So that's just my day-to-day. It's a nightmare already. What about, this is kind of a side subject, the trash. Okay. The city doesn't seem to be able to handle the trash pickup in Natura. How are they going to handle it with 300 and some odd units across the street? It seems like there's broken trucks, lack of employees, and it's overflowing half the time. So that would be something to consider or look into anyway. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Breathe. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Aaron Locascio, 615 Southeast 12th Avenue. I'm very sympathetic to a lot of the comments that the public made here today. I saw the proposal. It sounded very good. It does sound like there's some real concerns that should be looked at. But I've lived here for most of my life. And like Commissioner Drosky said, this is the gateway to the city. And I do understand that at some point you should draw a line. There's a place to draw a line, and maybe the 49 unit per acre development on Federal Highway was too much, but this doesn't seem like it's it. I commute oftentimes in Boca on Yamato, and they must have built thousands of units. And I don't see an increase of traffic. Now, again, I want to be sympathetic because they have real concerns and they should be looked at and evaluated. But Deerfield, I love this city. And it really needs to continue to be developed and redeveloped because as time goes on, I've seen more and more properties that have fallen to the wayside. And I appreciate that everyone enjoys the quietness at times of the neighborhoods, but Deerfield is a special place. And I think the right development projects like this, if with the careful considerations, truly improve the city. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ad nauseum.
Terry Scott, 180 Southwest Third Avenue. I think I can speak tonight because I remember when the tour was built and it wasn't wanted. I can remember when a lot was built around here and we didn't want it. But development had to come to bring this city to what it is today. I am third generation to be born in the city of Deerfield Beach. My family carries 117 years here. And we have seen the ins and out of this city. But if development did not come, then Natura would not be sitting where it is today. So we do need development. Now, the traffic study, yes, they need to look at that. And I can say, when the hotel came 23 years ago, we said traffic was going to come. It didn't impact. Look at Natura and all of its traffic from the apartments also. No impact. Not on daily life. Yeah, it does stop you a few minutes from going across Hillsborough. I can tell you because I walk that way every day or every other day. I come through Westside Park or Ovita McKeithen's complex. So I understand. But does that stop us from having something to look good on Hillsborough? It shouldn't. What's going to happen when the development starts on Southwest 10th? Are we going to say no to that too? It's not going to work. Development is coming. And it's time for us to accept and let us work with these developers. And as I was taught by this city, they're developing on their property. Guys, yes, traffic is something, and we do need to look at it. But Hillsborough needs a whole lot of makeover. Hillsborough needs help. In order to attract, we have to do something about Hillsborough. We have to look at Hillsborough Boulevard. And I remember when it was nothing on Hillsborough, but a bunch of woods, a couple of houses with a few little horses. But now look at Hillsborough. And it's study taking development. Mayor, if I could, please. Yes. Out west in Deerfield, it's still being built. People have started coming. And can we stop the folks from coming to a beautiful city like Deerfield? No, unless we going through a whole lot of trash on that beach. That's what they're coming for. Our beautiful beach, our outstanding beach. I would say, let's work with the developer on trying to get a real impact study on your traffic. If that's what it takes. Because development is coming. It's coming. And we might as well get ready to look for the change. And let's work to make one beautiful Deerfield Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online hopped in? Yes.
Ad nauseum.
Oh, psych. Okay. Anyone else? I'm going to close it to the public. I'm going to go ahead and close it to the public. Thank you. There's a couple questions that I think hopefully you can address most of the questions that came up. Mr. Mealy, go ahead.
Thank you. So a few points. The first thing I would ask you to remember is before we go to the Planning and Zoning Board and before we come here, we go to the DRC. And the DRC includes your planning staff, your engineering staff, your traffic engineering consultant.
Your DRC, you might want to Spell that out for us.
Oh, Development Review Committee.
Thank you.
And that's before we go to P and Z, before we go to City Commission. Your fire department, your police department, all of them review these things. Traffic safety, traffic movements, water and sewer, drainage, to make sure that everything's done properly. So the only thing I can say is traffic engineering is a very complicated thing. I'm not a traffic engineer. I have a driver's license, just like everybody else in the room, and I drive, but I'm not a traffic engineer. So when all of the traffic engineers say that the better way for the intersection to work is with one left turn lane that's longer, that gives people two opportunities to turn left, once on the arrow and once on the solid green, I've got to go with them because they're the experts. It's not something I came up with. It's something that the traffic engineers agreed on. And I think that's important. And the same thing with safety and everything else. Now, when we went to the Planning and Zoning Board, they asked us to do three things. And it was a unanimous recommendation of approval, asked us to do three things. Number one, to check this crosswalk location to see if it was safe, to see if the county would agree to it. They also asked us to check to see if it could be one of those kind of lighted crosswalks, you know, where there's a sign and the lights blink, or there's a thing in the road where the crosswalk is, where there's lights. They said, check all that. That's when we went to the county. The county said you'd have to do a warrant analysis like you do for a traffic signal, in this case for a crosswalk, and you'd have to have 20 people crossing an hour to make it work. We said we would check with the county, and we'll go check with them again. The second thing the Planning and Zoning Board asked us to do was to see if a no U-turn sign could be placed at the corner of Natura Boulevard and Natura Avenue, because people in the neighborhood were concerned that folks would make a U-turn there. Our traffic engineer contacted the county traffic engineering people because the city of Deerfield Beach has a traffic engineering agreement with Broward County that deals with traffic lights, signs, striping, pavement markings, all that stuff. So the county said, if the city engineer will contact us and make the request, we'll go out and look at it and see if they can put in a no U-turn sign. In other words, they won't do it if we ask, but they will check it if you ask to determine if it's warranted to put in a no U-turn sign. And I don't think there's any reason to wait. I don't see why you couldn't do it now if you don't want to have U-turns there. The third thing, and this was totally misconstrued by one of the speakers, is they asked us to, after the building is CO'd and occupied, that's why you wait 1 year after the CO. So the residential building is totally occupied. And at that point, you ask the county to look at the traffic signal timing at Natura and Hillsborough. Not a new improvement, not a different turn lane, not a different road, but just is the traffic signal timing maximizing the use of that intersection. So what they do is they count the traffic going all the different movements to say, how many seconds of green time do we give to this movement versus the other movement? And the reason you wait until the property's occupied is so all the traffic's there and you're counting the timing for the signal properly. I just finished a project in Wilton Manors and we had a similar recommendation, except there they asked for a longer period of time. They felt like 12 months wasn't long enough. So it's not a traffic study after the fact. It's not fixing something that's broken. It's seeing if the traffic signal timing can be changed, which is done with a computer at the county office on Commercial Boulevard. Very simple process. There was a statement that everyone was going to go south on Natura and make U-turns. Could I ask you to the clerk, could you put our slide back up and give me slide 8, please? I just want to point out that we have 4 access points to this property. 1 on Hillsborough, 3 on Natura. 2 of the access points on Natura are at a median opening. So you don't need to go south and make a U-turn. You can make a right turn or a left turn. And you can see those 3 along Natura. We have the entrance off of Hillsborough. Someone asked a question about that. Even though we don't meet the traffic numbers to put in a right turn lane on Hillsborough Boulevard, DOT asked us to do it anyway, and we agreed. And so we are putting a right turn lane on Hillsborough Boulevard to get the cars off the boulevard and into the property. And there's no gate blocking them. You come into the property. You can go around the south end of the garage before you go in. There's all kinds of stacking. We spent, I don't know how many hours with your staff on circulation into the property, and then once you're in the property, going in the various places. I think we spent more time on that than anything else we did. I know that people come to a meeting like this and they say, well, you didn't do any studies. What do you think we've been doing the last couple of years? Is studying every one of these things. There was a criticism made about the traffic study, and we've been through this before. Regardless of when a traffic study is made, there is always an adjustment based on a DOT formula to make it the most busiest traffic week of the year, like in the middle of February, right around now. So if you do a study in April, you have to increase the numbers to make it as if it were February. If you did a study during the coronavirus, there was also a factor that the DOT applied to make you increase the numbers to account for what might have been reduced traffic. So there's no problem with the traffic study. One of the speakers said that we weren't going to build the office building. So first, let's clarify. The 700 building is being done as part of phase one. The improvements to the 700 building are being made at the exact same time as the construction of the residential building. All of the streetscape and horizontal improvements around the 600 building are being made at the exact same time as the construction on the 700 building and the residential. Very shortly after that will be the renovations to the 600 building itself. And I'll acknowledge it, phases 3 and 4 are for the future. And it's going to be some period of time before we do them. The office market today is not good. It wouldn't be a good time to build new office. It's definitely a good time to upgrade the office we have, so it's more desirable to the tenants that are out there. So there was a comment made that we weren't going to build the other stuff, and that's not true. The comment about bifurcating the property and doubling the density, it can't be done. The land use designation gives all the units that we're allowed to have on this property, which is what we're building. We also have a development agreement that states that this is all of the buildings, all of the units we are building. We cannot come back and double it or triple it or add anything to it. We're stuck with that number, the 21.82, the 360 units in the development agreement, no increase. The comment about the public benefit. You can look at Development Review Committee comments, and you have to remember that we go back, we submit plans, we get comments. We submit revisions, we get comments. We submit more revisions, and then finally we get to the point where the comments are satisfied and we're put on Planning and Zoning Board and City Commission. So any comment you read in the Development Review comments that's early in the process, it's already been taken care of, or we wouldn't be here. So if there were questions early in the process about the public benefits, that's not unusual. We added more public benefits. That's how we were able to satisfy the concern. So looking at the early stage of the development comments does not tell you the story of where we're at today. By the way, with our various offsite construction and contributions to different programs, it's over $3 million. So, you know, there is a special $200,000 payment for the McKeithen Park. And even though it might already be under construction, I'm sure you'd be happy to save some of your money by using some of our money. But we're also paying city impact fees, I think that are about $1.8 million for a variety of different things that you offer here. The comments that the drainage and the sidewalks are not beneficial. Well, we didn't come up with those improvements. The staff told us this is what was needed. We're making improvements to sidewalks on both sides of Natura. So if you're walking to McKeithen Park and there's no sidewalk there now, or the sidewalk's too narrow, that's one of the things we're fixing. And that's in addition to the park impact fee and in addition to the $200,000 contribution. So I assure you that as part of this process, your staff has added everything that they could, that they felt was in any way relevant to our development. We're across the street from McKeithen Park. I understand the need to contribute there. We're making the drainage improvements. A lot of people have said, well, I don't see any drainage problems out there. But your engineers are looking at it and saying that they think they would be there in the future if we don't fix it now. So we're doing it. Other than that, let me just see if I missed anything here. Other than that, height of buildings. The 600 building is 75 feet tall. It's right on the property. I don't know the height of the hotel building, but by the time we come back next time, I'll be able to tell you. So the comment that we're building a building that's out of place with what's around us is not true.
I think the comment was it being a non-conforming building the way it is now, and I don't know if it is or not, and you're going to match it with something
Well,
that's non-conforming.
right. As part of the PDD, we specify all our heights and everything. We have no variances, but you know, that's the nature of a PDD. You design it for the property. But yes, I I did hear that comment. But I heard different things. One comment was there was nothing out there like that. And then the comment about the Live Local Act, at least so far, the city's position has been that a planned development district is not a district you get to count for the purpose of comparing for the Live Local Act. And I know that because of another project I'm working on in the city other than this one. So this doesn't set a precedent under the Live Local Act if you continue to interpret it the way you've been interpreting it. And I have no reason to believe you would change.
Okay.
Any other questions? Be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston, then Vice Mayor Parnas. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Vice Mayor, go ahead first then.
How many of you built your own homes with your own two hands? Raise your hand. You built it from ground up by yourself? And you did. That's 2 out of how many? The rest of you used a developer. Shame on you. You used a developer. Why? Because that's how houses are built generally in a city. And better understand this, we're in competition with other cities. We want to survive. We want to grow. We want to prosper. In order to do that, we need something called development. Let's take Century Village. You know what it was before it was Century Village? Does anybody know? It was a dairy farm. The Yankees and the Mets wanted to buy it for a training ground. And the people of this town at that time said, oh, that would bring us too much traffic. So they turned that down and Levy bought it and built homes, built apartments. Now during the season, we have 16,000 people living there. It's about 17% of the city. Happens to be part of my constituency. Get it through your head. Without development, cities die. We don't have enough development by the beach. Not enough people live there. If you take a look at the S-curve, you'll find empty stores at the beach. Prime. And they can't make a living. So they closed. Why? Because not enough residents. Residents make the local merchants survive and prosper. So we either develop and have the balance between business and residents, or we suffer the fate of other cities and just go downhill and rot and die. Not all development is good, but if the staff of this city and the county goes through the plans and finds it to be not just possible, but preferable, get used to it because it's going to happen. And when cities run out of space, they go up because they can't go any further wide. And that's the future. And we can't say only rich people can live here because the taxes will go up and they can afford it. I have people now that are selling in Century Village because the insurance on their buildings went so high they can't afford to live here. Many of them are Canadians, and their dollars are worth about 3/4 of what ours are. But the insurance premiums are in American dollars, and they're hurting. My neighbor down the hall told me, I'm better off selling, coming here for 3 months a year when the winter's at its worst, and surviving because I'm a senior. I'm no longer working. I just can't keep affording. We don't have homestead. The taxes are high and insurance are out of sight. So get used to the idea that we're going to have to develop. And if there is a problem with traffic or other things, we'll solve them as they occur. The same way we've done with other problems. That's what cities do. So with that, I recommend to approve this project.
Okay, we'll take that in motion. We've got a couple more comments here. Commissioner Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I've listened to, well, a lot of different comments. Mr. Hurst, you said that not any of the commissioners live in close proximity that would basically understand the needs of the Natura resident. You're wrong. I live in very close proximity. And not only do I live in close proximity, I drive it. I understand what it is that they're going through. It's not about just representing a constituency. It is to do what is right. The process that we live under in this great country is that if someone buys property, they're allowed to develop it, but there's a lot of rules that they have to adhere to. But the other side of that is those residents, those people that live in that area, should they have a say? And the answer is yes. I didn't hear anybody say it, stop this project. Okay, I didn't hear that. But the resident have a right to be heard. They have a right. And not only that, I will tell you right now, if I opened up by saying that it's important for the developer to understand that everything that can be done to mitigate any of the issues to keep the impact of this project low, he's obligated to do that. Because here's the other side of it. We talk about the business side. Once the project is done, the developer's gone. He made his money, he's gone. So whatever issues that the people have there, now they got to live with it. It is in these meetings that we should talk about it, debate it. And I can tell you, I have to be convinced that we're going to do the right thing, for the residents. And let me tell you, the other side too, is that when we're not doing that, we're not serving our residents. I don't really know a commissioner up here that don't have a compassion for its resident. And I'm going to also say this, though, on the other side, the commission doesn't sit here to say no just for the fact to say no. But more important than businesses, we need to hear the residents, how they feel. Because I personally believe, and I can't speak for anybody else, the most important resource in the city of Deerfield Beach is not the businesses, but rather the residents. That's the most important. And it's also important for us to understand that as these projects go forward, I don't care how long it takes, there has to be a commitment from those that have the resources, the capital, to say, I hear what you're saying, and we're going to do this, and then this commission holds them accountable. I live in very close proximity to Natura, and the people over there are just really wonderful people. They treat people nice there. And they want to protect their life. What's wrong with that? But they also know you can't just say no to say no. That's not going to happen. Progress is going to happen. But I can tell you, we can affect how it happens and making sure that it's not a great impact on their lives. So when they look back at it, they need to know that this commission did the most that it could do to help them and to protect them. And I'm committed to doing that. And it's not because I live in close proximity to them, Mr. Hurst. It's because it's the right thing to do. These are residents. These are taxpayers. I'm not obligated to anything other than that. That's the biggest thing, is protecting the taxpayer. But I'm going to just give you some insurance. Those that came out, especially from Natura, let me tell you, this commission isn't hostile. It isn't going to say, you know what, they don't count, whatever. Listen, there was a major project shut down in another location simply because there were great concerns. And that's a wonderful thing. And I want you to have confidence. Doesn't mean that everything is going to go your way, but I can tell you this, it's not going to go their way either. We're going to fight for you, and we're going to do the right thing. And so I want you to have confidence in the system. It is not right for you to think that you're not being heard. I'm going to listen. And when I have an issue, I'm going to call Mr. Mealy. I'm going to call, city staff to say, what about this? What about that? Because I have gone over and seen the problem. I want your lives to be impacted in a very low way. And I'm going to do as much as I can, but I'm not going to say that for me to isolate myself from this commission. I can guarantee you this commission is going to do the same thing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. A couple of points on this, and I know we have a motion on the floor. There's a bit of how people think things should be, and how things should work, and then there's a little bit of what reality is. There's theory versus reality. First off, I just want to address parking, sewer, water, all of that stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's done into this. And if you think that we're just going to approve something that's going to give us sewer problems that we're not going to be able to handle, we don't have the capacity to handle, do you really think the people that are approving this are going to want to be having those jobs sitting there approving something that's going to give them the problems that they've had in Fort Lauderdale? They're not going to do that. They're going to make sure we have the capacity to handle it, because they would much rather have their life a lot easier in the future by not having these problems when these things start exploding down the road, like they've done in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know what world, I heard one of the failed candidates comment about caving into developers. I've been here a long time. Our biggest criticism was that we didn't have enough development in this city. We weren't doing enough, made by the same person and the same people he supported. And now flip-flops and says, oh my gosh, we're caving into developers. The very same attorney who was up here was shot down on a project on Federal Highway by the city because it was too much, we felt. We have the ability to say no. Now, the comment was made that these projects need to be stop being developer-driven and be city-driven. Tried that. We did Pioneer Grove. We did a study. We had charrettes. We took public input. We created Pioneer Grove. One of the same people, the failed candidate again, who got up here and criticized us, has criticized that city plan and why we haven't had any development with it. Development usually is developer driven. Doesn't mean we need to change everything based on what they say. And we've shown that time and time again. It's always going to be a little bit of a NIMBY situation, not in my backyard. There's 5 of us up here. Not all of us are going to live right next door to a project, but we've been around enough to see enough development in the city and enough changes to know that it impacts all of us, whatever our traffic patterns are. We're all intelligent enough to be able to make decisions just because we don't live next door to it. Is this going to impact you negatively? It's going to have an impact on you. When you go from nothing to something, it's always going to have an impact. And it's not necessarily going to be good. But there was a good point that was made about some of these other projects that, again, I've been up here a long time. The project that was brought up, Sandpiper on Military, sky was falling. Absolutely worst thing that's happened. Military Trail is going to be a complete gridlock. Did not occur. I haven't received a single complaint about that project. Just on the west side of I-95, one of the first projects I ever approved, well, actually, I didn't approve it because I lost that vote, was they wanted to make it a TOD, a transit-oriented development, which had the highest density you'd ever find in any city. They wanted to put it right there on Jim Moran, right across from Home Depot, right there on 95. It's going to be massive, massive project. Chamber of Commerce, everybody came out, was in favor. It voted against it. It got approved. It never got developed. It finally got developed into something which people thought was going to create a lot of traffic issues. Absolutely does not occur. The reality of a situation, there's a lot of fear. Change is scary. We need change, though. It's going to happen. You have to redevelop what you have existing. That has to happen. And I didn't hear anybody say that we shouldn't. We don't necessarily don't want it in our backyard, but we want to make sure what we're doing. And it was an interesting point. The changes that are going to be made from a traffic standpoint, let's make sure that they are not just trying to make it equal to what it is now, but it should be hopefully improving the situation. I think it will, and it is a good point to say by adding more cars, you're negating a lot of it, but I believe we're actually doing a few gains. But I do think, and I could be wrong, and it's interesting from the residents who live it, breathe it every single day, that maybe extending that lane as far as I'd hoped doesn't make a lot of sense and maybe it doesn't work, could impact the park. That obviously needs to be looked at. Up here, we can kind of say it on the fly to do it, but it needs to be studied and looked at a little bit more. The turn lanes, trying to figure out what is the best way to get that traffic across there. I wanted some clarification on the height, and maybe Mr. Power or the city manager can give us some clarification on the height of that building over there. And quite frankly, whether it's if it's a 5-foot increase, it's over by 95. It's not going to be towering over residents right there next to it.
I'm sorry, sir. Were you referring to the existing
Yeah.
building or the new building?
There was a point that was made about a non-conforming condition, about a height that was over there on an existing building, and then building the new building up to that same height. I believe that was the point that was made. I've tried to simplify it.
I'm not aware of any non-conforming height issue for the existing building. There may be one. I'm not aware of it. I can research that. But the current proposed building, we measure from the flat roof of a building that's on height is measured. So there may be additional things that I think were brought up, like a stairwell, elevator shaft, a parapet, that nature, but we do measure from the flat roof of the building. That's our main
Okay.
height.
Okay, and what is our height limitations over in that area?
For that area, it's 75 feet.
Okay.
That's at the B2 zoning district.
Mhm.
They're requesting PDD, which means they can request their own height. I believe they're only requesting, a few feet above what.
Okay.
the height.
How tall is the hotel across the street? The DoubleTree?
DoubleTree, I don't have that off the top of my head. I believe the height for the PDD though is 100 feet. So it is different across the street. That particular district, the maximum height district is 100.
Is 100.
Yeah, but that building was also built in 1982, so I'm not sure if that height was different at the time, but at the.
Okay, I'm just trying to give people an idea in comparison of what it is. One thing I will say, if this is the gateway, and it is a gateway into the city, and we do need that to be improved, and it's stagnant now. I don't know how anybody can be happy with what's there. It needs to change. I do hope that we can get on FDOT at our grand entrance and have them stop using that location there at Hillsborough and 95 on the east side of 95 as their construction storage giant pile of garbage, Sanford and Son looking thing that they have going on there now. So I think that's a conversation. If we're going to improve the gateway, that's got to improve. And that's FDOT, and we know how much they love us. So that'll be fun talking to them. I think those are all the points that I had. I just want to make sure, look, every city needs development. You need the development for the health of the city. Certain people that I think that you're going to have a Goldilocks situation. You've got somebody who's complained about our reserves when they were less than $10 million because they were too much, and now they're at 50 million, they're too much. Well, if you look at the economy and the way things are and the cost of doing business, you need to make sure that you're healthy. And that means we need to have changes and we need to grow. And it's not just about a money grab. It's about the long-term health of an existing city. And if you look, as the same person will praise Boca Raton and see what they're doing, go ask them what they're doing along Federal Highway, just a few miles north of our border. And yet they praise them for all their development and they bash us for one that's a pretty minimum impact. With that said, I want to thank all of you for coming out and sharing your opinion on it and being extraordinarily polite. We had one little dust up, but that's okay. But I really, honestly, it's very impressive. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the input on this, because your voice does matter in this. And you are not the last to be considered in this situation. It's the first on how do you address it. We've had a lot of conversations with Mr. Mealy and making sure that he's reached out to all of you. I appreciate that they've done that. There's still more work to be done. At this point, though, it is something that I think should move forward with some work that needs to be done before we get to the next phase of this. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I want to echo the mayor's sentiment, and we do appreciate everybody's input. We represent all of you. We live in the city as well, and we're impacted by the traffic. We're impacted by these projects as well. So I completely understand, and we all completely understand your concerns and your challenges. And we are here to make sure that this project, if it is approved, goes as a positive impact as we possibly can. Not only are there going to be residents, there are going to be businesses there.
There are going to be restaurants there. Those are things that our residents will be able to enjoy as well. So there are going to be positive things that happen at this site. Things that you can't take advantage of now because there's nothing there. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion from the Vice Mayor. We have a second from Commissioner Hudak that is approved to move forward. I think the notes that the comments have been taken will be the takeaways to work on this for the next phase of it. Okay. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas.
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes. Thank you.
Item number 2 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida.
We're gonna, Mr. Soroka, can we just give a couple minutes? We got a couple people that are probably gonna.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, yeah, absolutely. My pleasure, sir. My pleasure. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Starami mogę powiedzieć,
Thanks for
że jak
coming
to
out.
jest wolnych apartamentów przy tym, przy plaży, to niech tych, co mają
Thanks,
tu
brother.
mieszkać, z nami pomieści.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you know how crazy this is.
Yes.
28 years.
Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Congratulations. We'll get it from you over there. I don't have one on my.
Will not
Excellent.
go
Thank you.
where?
We're going to recess for just 2 minutes while everyone leaves the room.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let me give you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Absolutely.
We do that.
Down here.
Yeah, okay.
No, I went to Cooper City, actually. There you go. There's my cell phone.
Why didn't
Got it,
you
buddy.
ask?
Thank you.
Same thing like we're talking about. Let's learn.
Okay.
One more minute, we'll reconvene, guys.
All right. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on a second.
Yes.
What we have here is first reading. They're gonna come back with the particulars. I know,
Okay.
and that's when a lot of those questions will be answered. If they're not answered, there's no guarantee we'll approve it.
No, I understand. Far away from that, but like I said, as of right now, what we're talking about, that's traffic.
Yeah.
More of the time we're talking about.
That's okay.
Let's say.
We're gonna, gentlemen, we get back to our regular meeting here. I'm sorry. Sir,
Consider it.
Sir, I
when
have to
they-
reconvene
When
the
they
meeting.
did
I'm
that,
sorry.
they considered
That's
how many
okay.
apartments,
Sir,
how many,
hey,
how many
thank you.
cars.
Sir, we got to reconvene the meeting. Sorry about that. That's okay.
That's okay. All right, good. I appreciate your.
Thank you. We're gonna go ahead and reconvene, Mr. Soroka. Sir.
There you go.
Sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Ready, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, item number 2 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Article 2, Boards, Committees, Commissions of Chapter 2 Administration of the City Code of Ordinances to create Section 2-26 Criminal History Background Checks for certain advisory boards and committees, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and an effective date. This is second reading. I know the city manager's office has a presentation for you, and I'm also available to answer questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commission. I've got Mr. Horace McHugh, our Deputy City Manager, and the purpose of the presentation that's before you that he's going to give is just to make sure that the commission is up to speed on what this ordinance is and what changes were made since the first reading. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the commission. This afternoon, we're going to briefly talk about the changes in the ordinance. The consensus from the last meeting was to, first of all, adopt the ordinance in first reading. The request was to include the Planning and Zoning Board. Additionally, the request was to include the pension boards to the extent that they were permitted by law, and this refers to the police pension, the firefighter pension, and the general employee pension. And then there was also directions to include an appeal process. As it relates to the pension board, that's still under legal review, and some of the issues that the attorney can speak a little bit more to this, but some of the issues are that this ordinance addresses Chapter 2, The pension is not in chapter 2. So to the extent that it's on second reading, it would require a separate ordinance or re-advertising. In addition to that, the police and fire pension are regulated under state statute 175 and 185. And our ordinance would not be able to supersede those guidelines. Additionally, the membership is dictated by those state statutes, which again may have some directives that we could not override. In addition to that, we are being told that these boards are not advisory. As I said, this is still under review by the city attorney's office, and he'll be able to provide you a little bit more input on that. The boards themselves or at issue is a request that the advisory boards and committees should undergo, the members should undergo background screening if whose members or activities or duties are performed within or in close proximity to parks or facilities with minors, the elderly, or persons with special needs, or if the boards and committees involved participating in city activities and events with minors and elderly or persons with special needs. So here the emphasis or focus was amongst our youth, amongst our elders, and amongst those with special needs. In addition to that, at the last meeting, the commission requested that we add those whose activities or duties include making a recommendation to the city commission on land use, zoning, platting, site plan, or variance application, planning and zoning board members. So that was added subsequent to that, and that's in the proposed ordinance. With that, the boards themselves that would be subject to a level 2 background check as of now are the Education Advisory Board, based on what their mandate is, based on what the commission has directed, the Cultural Committee, African American Heritage Committee, and recently added at this meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board. In terms of a level 2 background check, the question may be, what is it? I know there was some discussion at the last meeting. These are offenses involving moral turpitude, and there's some terminologies and legal description of that. But in addition to that, it includes felonies that are described in Chapter 435 of the state statute. Some of these involve violent crimes, and some examples are aggravated assault, armed robberies, sexual crimes like sexual battery, homicide crime, murder, homicides, and crimes against vulnerable population like abuse. Now, these are not all encompassing, but these are just some examples to give you an idea of the various categories and some of the severity in terms of making a decision. The level 2 background checks do not include misdemeanors, and some of the misdemeanors that would not be included are things like petty theft, possession of a controlled substance, a small amount, vandalism, trespassing, public intoxication, DUI. These are misdemeanors that would not be included. Also does not include infractions such as speeding and noise violations. So I know there was some debate and discussion at the last meeting, and just wanted to offer this as clarification that these would not this would not be a disqualifier normally under the level 2 background check. In terms of the appeal process, what we did is develop an appeal process. In essence, you'd qualify for an appeal if it's within, the proposal is if it's within 3 years of satisfaction of the felony sentence conditions, and if the initial felony that were subsequently a felony has been downgraded to a misdemeanor. You would not be able to qualify for an appeal if it's fewer than 3 years after satisfaction of the felony sentence conditions, or if it's a sexual offense that would deem you to be a sexual predator, sexual offender, or similar type of categories. In terms of the appeal process, what's involved? The process that's being proposed is that the individual may submit an application for an appeal. It would require the support of the sponsoring elected official to move forward. With that, we'd have it scheduled for a special magistrate hearing, and the attempt would be within 10 business days. It allows the appellant to submit documentation, mitigating documentation or informative documentation. And then if approved by the special magistrate, it's scheduled then for the city commission action as it would normally be done. The appeal process, as I said, it would be scheduled for the special magistrate. And some of the reasons that we're recommending the special magistrate, the magistrates are attorneys that are licensed to practice law in Florida. That's a process that's currently being used by the sports appeal and for code compliance. It offers a lot of flexibility in terms of scheduling. Here our objective was to get it done within 10 business days. So with a special magistrate, based on their availability, based on the appellant's availability, it's easy to schedule and do public notice. They are further appointed by the city commission. So these are attorneys who you've already looked at their resume and determined that you have a comfort level with them and appointed them. And with having this type of review, there's some consistency in the review process as people will be going to the special magistrate. Some of the documentation that the appellant would be able to provide is information about the nature of the crime, the impact to the victim, any relevant information, any mitigating circumstances, any evidence that the behavior is no longer a threat, maybe some history, criminal history or community service history since the crime, any personal references or any other relevant information. And what that would do is allow the special magistrate to consider things like if there were factual errors, if the severity of the offense, any mitigating factors, the age of the offender when the crime was committed, the length of time since the offense was, or any other information, and generally to determine if the person has, continues to be a threat or if there's some reform that's been there. So with that, Mayor and Commissioners, this item was adopted on first reading. It's been brought to you on second reading. As requested, it includes the Planning and Zoning Board. It includes the appeal process, and it's ready for your consideration by the commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commission comments before we open to the public? Anyone from the public here to comment on this item?
Daniel Shanetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, Florida, 33442. I approve of this ordinance. I think it's very, very important to have transparency. Whether somebody's going for an advisory committee or an elected official, I think it's very important. You're a public servant. I think it's important for the public to know what your past is. I think that's very important, especially after the George Santos debacle, where he hid a lot of things from his past. So I think this is very important. I like the appeals process because there are mitigating circumstances. I think it's very inclusive, the appeals process. And this way you get a really full picture of what happened and what could happen. The bottom line is the city could be held liable for any, infraction if we don't have this, and that's the bottom line. They could be hit with a huge penalty, a lawsuit. So I think it's very, very important to be as transparent as possible. And I believe honesty is the most important thing, whether it's something shaded in the past or not. I think honesty and clearancy is the most important thing. So I'm in favor of this, especially with the new changes, the appeals process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Hirsch, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I would hope in the future, any commissioner who has 6 months to craft an ordinance will do a better job of thinking it through to avoid all the divisiveness and anger that this poorly written ordinance has caused. The first time this ordinance appeared, there was a line written at the end of the ordinance that read as follows: "The mayor and commission are exempt from the requirements of this section when serving or being appointed to a board, committee, or commission under the jurisdiction of the city commission." The optics of this exclusionary language were awful and made many taxpayers wonder what the author was thinking when he inserted this exemption, or even worse, who was he trying to protect? 2 weeks later, at the next reincarnation of this ordinance, the exclusionary language was removed, but the author's insistence that the level 2 background checks only apply to 3 Deerfield Beach committees remained. This despite the fact that taxpayer Katie Freitag had brought up at the previous meeting that there were other Deerfield Beach.
Don't mention it.
Oh, I'm sorry. A taxpayer had mentioned that there were other Deerfield Beach committees, such as planning and zoning, where someone with a criminal past could do great harm to the city. There were other committees that were mentioned at the January 23rd commission meeting that should have been included in any discussion about what committees needed level 2 background checks. Was the ordinance's original author so short-sighted that all he could think about was protecting the children? Why couldn't the commissioner think about protecting the taxpayers as well? The appointees to the 3 pension advisory boards make decisions and take votes on items that have multi-million-dollar ramifications. Are the commissioners aware that the city contributed $6.2 million of the taxpayers' money to the fire pension board for the fiscal year ending 9/30/22? And that 3 of the 5 committee members must be residents of Deerfield Beach? What are the potential implications to the taxpayers if one of these 3 pension committees had an individual with a white-collar criminal background record? As an example, we don't have to look any further than the potential ramifications if the main shareholder of Investments Limited was ever appointed to a Deerfield Beach pension committee. The main point is, I wish this ordinance's author would have been as zealous in protecting the taxpayers as he is in protecting the children. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? And close it to the public then. Is there anyone online? Okay. Thank you. Just a couple of things. First off, the outrage was not so much, the only outrage came from one individual, that the exemption was in for the elected officials. Let's not pretend. The outrage was created by an individual who was looking for anything desperate to hold on to criticize this. What I find interesting about it is if you look at the ordinance, in which this does exist in other cities, that language is in there. So it wasn't pulled out, put in specifically for that. That's already been clarified, but we'll beat a dead horse because someone's desperate to try to earn points. I think the real outrage should be what was insinuated the first time around on this. Couple points I want to bring up on this that I'm very happy that we are including P&Z, because that, I know the first extent should always be about public safety and children's safety, but some people only think about dollars first. But it is really about public safety, and I think that's where the intent of this came from. But I'm glad P&Z is part of this, and I'll give you an example of why it should be. In Surfside in Miami, there is a P&Z board member who is a convicted felon who serves on there. And he was convicted for being part of one of the biggest Ponzi schemes that's ever occurred, and certainly in the state of Florida, the whole Rothstein Ponzi scheme that occurred. One of the main people that was convicted in that is now serving on their P&Z board. And when they make decisions, when they've made decisions serving in that capacity, the public has had a problem with it because they certainly questioned it. So it is good having it on there. As far as the point about including the other boards that had to do with the pensions, as it was pointed out, it's still under legal review and might not legally be allowed to happen, but we shouldn't wait for that legal outcome to come out when we can put something in place that immediately addresses the safety of our residents. Another point that needs to be made that wasn't brought up about this, but we heard, I heard one of my colleagues criticize for saying, asking for, the public asked, and I believe one of their colleagues asked for specifics on why to do this. And they gave an example of the Educational Advisory Board being at an award ceremony at the school. And we had a former member of that board say, well, that's ridiculous. I was there and there's so many people around, nothing could happen. Let me tell you why that is misguided, misinformed, and flat out wrong. 5 years ago, we had a swim instructor here in the city of Deerfield Beach. It was an employee of the city of Deerfield Beach, molest 3 little girls. He is serving 4 life sentences for that. That occurred in the pool with parents, other students, instructors, and employees there. And that occurred. The first thing they asked, the news, go back and look at the old news articles. First thing they said, he passed a background check from the city of Deerfield Beach. Imagine if that had not occurred. To say it can't happen when there's a bunch of people around is naive and inaccurate. And unfortunately, we had the history to prove it. I'm glad we're moving forward with this. I think this is the right thing to do. It makes a lot of sense. We also know that background checks are not a cure-all. It's not going to catch everything. It doesn't mean, in this particular case, this person passed a background check and they still did what they did. And I'm glad we're moving forward with this. I think this is the right thing to do. And I think the approach we're taking is the right thing to do. So I look forward to supporting it. Commissioner Preston?
Thank you. I still think that this is invasive. These are volunteer people that want to give up their time. I said before that this is a problem. A solution looking for a problem. And that's just what it is. You don't need this. And I've heard you say, Mayor, that some other city or something. I called a lot of cities for their volunteer boards. They don't have anything like this in place. But the rationale coming from this commission was we're being proactive. So if that's the position that you're taking. But this is something that is not widely adopted by other cities. And then you brought up the thing about the person that molested the girls. How do you prevent that? He had a background check. Still didn't prevent it. So what good was the background check? What use was it? So we're going to say that the background, it should be that because of the background check, it prevented something. We had the background check and 3 little girls still got molested. This is too invasive for people that just want to give up their time in their city. So that's my position. I already know that this is going to pass and that's it.
Okay.
And by the way, the magistrate, the appeals process, I don't know that a lot of thought was given to this. And I'll challenge the city manager and the attorney. How much thought did you put into this? I think you guys just passed it off to the magistrate. Just okay, we got a person that's in place. If there was a 2-3 people appeal process, okay, that's really a true appeals process. But this to me is just, okay, we'll give it to the special magistrate only because it was brought up.
Vice Mayor Parnas?
Ben, I hate to disagree with you. I've changed my mind on this. Background checks cannot hurt. And if they scare people away, too bad. I want to protect the kids. And I think that doing a background check and finding out that somebody maybe was a child molester, it's a good reason to keep them away from our kids. Will it prevent all crime? No. That's like saying having a bank guard with a gun, since the guy got robbed anyway, we shouldn't have bank guards with guns. No, that's not the answer. The answer is a background check is screening. If somebody's really dirty or bad and know they're going through a background check, they won't apply to be a volunteer. Not unless they're really dumb. If I committed armed robbery 20 years ago and I wanted to coach football, I don't know if I knew there was going to be a background check whether I'd apply to be a coach. because I know it's going to turn up. Then everybody's going to know I was convicted of armed robbery, even if it was 20 years ago. If it's minor, misdemeanor, whatever, and they turns up on a background check and he's refused, then he has the right to appeal. If the judge thinks it's okay, fine. It's a filtering process. But just to ignore it because one guy passed the background check and molested 3 girls is not the answer. That doesn't make background checks all bad because one slipped through. That's, to me, not an analogy. That's just an excuse not to have it. So I ask that has to be an appeal process. There is an appeal process because if something did misdemeanor 20 years ago and wants to go in front of the judge, I've been a good boy for 20 years. I'm married. I got 3 kids. I haven't even had a traffic ticket in 20 years. Maybe we should give him another chance. But that's not a bad thing. And the more I thought about it, especially since my great-grandson is coming to visit me tomorrow from Cincinnati, it's not a bad thing to protect the kids. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This country was built on second chances. Somebody did something 20 years ago and they've turned their lives around. They deserve an opportunity to give back to their community. But we also have an obligation to protect our community. And that's why I'm glad the appeals process is there as well, because someone who has turned their lives around deserves a second chance. A lot of times they have to try 3 times as hard to get half as far. And so you respect people like that. But there are those individuals who do not learn. There are repeat offenders. And there are people that have done things that do not deserve an opportunity to be around our children. Sometimes they have not gotten caught yet, such as the case we talked about earlier. Other times they have gotten caught. And there's an old saying, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. What this is doing, locks are for honest people. They're a deterrent. But if you're a criminal, you can get around any lock if you want to. This is just a tool that we have an opportunity to take advantage of to at least have a clearer picture of who we are allowing to be around our children, who we are allowing to be on our boards. We represent the residents of this city. Those individuals represent us. And we have an obligation to be as educated as possible in who these individuals are who are representing us. The individuals who I sit up here with, I have the utmost respect for. The individuals that I appoint to the boards are representing me. And yes, there is a vetting process. Is it as extensive as we would like? No. This is an additional tool that we are allowed to use to ensure that the individuals that are representing us, that are representing our city, that are being in contact with our children, have the moral aptitude to be in those privileged positions. If somebody has made an error in the past, there is an appeals process. And then we get to make an even more educated decision, not only as the elected official who is going to present that individual, but as a commission to make sure that we want that individual to represent us. And I think that's a good thing. I'm thankful for Commissioner Drosky to bring this forward, and I'll wait for him to make a second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Preston?
Commissioner Parnas, what if I told you there was a city in Broward County, much larger than ours, and a man one time in his life committed manslaughter, went to prison? Would you let him around kids? Yeah, well, let me just tell you the end of the story. I don't want you to answer. The fact of the matter is that happened in a city, committed manslaughter, went to prison. He wanted to work with kids. He wanted to volunteer.
So,
You gonna let me finish?
yeah,
Okay, don't say so. I respected you, you respect me.
I do.
Okay.
Gentlemen, please.
Okay. He went to prison, came out of prison, wanted to work with kids. And they gave him this much larger city than ours, gave him a parameter of which he had to do. And he coaches football. Now he has to fill out a lot of paperwork every year, but they gave him a second chance. They gave him the ability to be able to, where so many people are excluded. You know, there are people that are free thinkers. I just think that whenever a person wants to volunteer, we need to do everything that we can to not discourage them, but encourage them. And sometime where, you know, just happen to be a difference of opinion tonight, where you feel one way about it, and I feel something totally different. So, Commissioner Drosky, you can make your second now.
Commissioner Drosky, go ahead. Okay. I'll be honest with you. I'm baffled by the applause. I'm baffled by the positioning. You know, other cities might not have this, but they should. And I love the fact that a person who is appointed an individual who fails a background check, that it is on that individual commissioner then to put that person forward to go through the magistrate process. I think the magistrate process is well thought out. We have one existing. It shouldn't be anything that needs to be different. I think I'm amazed that someone would stand up here and give a position that's more worried about protecting the taxpayer dollars than they are, but give zero position to the fact that we should be weeding out pedophiles or violent criminals. I'm really surprised by this, guys. I think we should we need to stop leaning towards protecting criminals and start leaning more towards protecting the innocents.
Is that
as
person
I
on the
stated
commission?
very clearly, that there is no stopgap that's going to cure every single thing. Absolutely not. But if we can only look at from a fiscal standpoint, imagine if that individual didn't have a background check. How are you going to know that someone who is a pedophile, a criminal, a rape, whatever it is, how are you going to know that person moves down here and has been around for 3 or 4 years, that 5 years ago they came down from Georgia and they had that in their background? What position would the city be in? Just if we can't think about safety, think about from a fiscal standpoint, what position would we be in if we didn't do a background check and do our due diligence on these individuals? We know, sitting up here when we appoint people, we don't do background checks. We know from what we know. That's it. I'm surprised and disappointed. We have a motion. We have a second. I'm gonna
Well,
call a
Mayor,
vote.
let me just tell you, so just to clear my position, I want children protected so that if anybody's confused about that, even you, Mayor, I want you to know that I want children protected. But it's more than just one point of view. And that's why we're here. That's why we live in this great country. People disagree every day. And I happen to disagree with how this is being done. And that's the way it will, that's the way it is.
Yep. Okay. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
No.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
We are now at public comment. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If you have a public comment on an item that's on the agenda, the time to do that is after I read the title into the record, and the public comment period for that item is open. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibility shall be permitted.
Thank you. Is there anyone online? Okay.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and city staff. It's good to be back here again.
Record, please.
My name is Tula Amana, 5030 Southwest 109th Avenue, Davie, Florida, 33328. We shouldn't have let this come to this point, actually. So I'm here to ask you 2 questions today, very specific. We could have avoided a lawsuit between the Deerfield Beach Cafe, the real one, and the city of Deerfield Beach if you had just answer simply my question whether the due processes were followed, and a simple question to be asked from Danielle Rossi if in fact there was any cone of silence violation committed. It was just a simple question that I asked. I was stopped from talking on the commission meeting of August 22nd, and as a matter of fact, I thought that I was respectfully answering the mayor's question when he asked, what is the name of the person? And I did not realize that it was only rhetorically asked because it was motioned to the police officers in the room to escort me out because I simply tried to say a name on that day. So I was kind of shocked, to be really honest, because it was just a question. Why was Lou Moshakos not given the Pier restaurant? And I was advocating for him, not for me at the time. So that's question 1. Why wasn't there a simple question asked? The second question is, and the reason that I'm here today is because of the Summit machine. For 10 years, I grinded the garbage with the Summit machine, and we made compost and fertilizer. And unfortunately, that was picked up every day, but I did not know where it ended up. I honestly thought that it ended up as a fertilizer somewhere. I didn't know that the program in the city had been, in fact, discontinued for all these years. At this time, when it was brought back to life again, and a lot of people are participating, our machine is not working for the past 3 months at the Pier restaurant, and I have asked that I repair it at my expense. But nobody has answered me, so I'm here in person to ask you to please don't take out other differences that we have regarding whether the due process was followed, and instead allow the city to move forward in the right direction, which is we need to continue the LEED certification and continue to grind garbage like we did for the past 10 years. Allow me to repair the machine, if I may have 1 more minute. Please, thank you. So I'm asking that you please allow SoFlo, which has not been given a permission, to fix the machine at my expense and continue with the LEED certification and pick up basically where we left off. Very, very respectfully, also I'm asking that we don't allow other citizens to come in between and attach their cases to mine. I'd like to keep it separately. Some people have chosen to approach me with causes that are not mine. They don't belong to the restaurant, and I'd rather stay and remain independent of everybody else's causes. There's a lot of other people that have told me that they want to be involved. There's some employees that came up with some other stuff that I really don't want to deal with because it's not on my realm and it's not on my immediate knowledge. Thank you.
I want to make sure we defer to the.
We will at
attorney.
that time at the end. Go ahead.
Daniel Shinetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, Florida, 33442. January 23rd, we had, with the city commission, we had a workshop on code compliance, and I got a chance to digest everything that was said, and I know I made comments on the 23rd, but I just wanted to reiterate. The first question that they were talking about was the amnesty program for code enforcement, people with fines. Now, I respect when the magistrate gives fines for code violations. I respect their guidelines. So I'd like to maybe look at what our sister cities, Fort Lauderdale, Lauderdale by the Sea, and Pompano Beach, they enacted an amnesty program in September of 2023. So they're going with that. So instead of having maybe a complete amnesty program, to maybe have something where they would reduce a lien or reduce a fine 25%, or just to give maybe a flat fee. I know we had said that there's $118 million in fines, code violations. Pompano Beach has $480 million in code violations, and they're going with an amnesty program. So I'm in favor of that. Also, we had spoken about maybe getting 4 more code enforcement agents so that there would be like a medium, and I'm in favor of that. I know it would be maybe a cost of $2 million, but I think that's a good investment, because I think right now, code enforcement fines are just so overwhelming, the caseload, that the code enforcement agents, inspectors we have right now really can't do their job adequately. So I think the investment of 4 new people would be a great investment in the long haul. I know we had also spoken about whether we should go forward like we have now, outsourcing code enforcement unit, or to make it in-house. I think we should keep an open question of looking at outsourcing, but also looking at putting it in-house, doing a study on it, and see which is more cost effective. If we do it in-house, even though it would cost, additional millions of dollars, I think inspectors, their salaries like $156,000 a year. I think in the long haul, it would be good for Deerfield Beach, because if it's in-house, they're more apt to be more diligent, more vigilant. They would have skin in the game because they live in the community. And I think that's very important in the 4 districts in Deerfield Beach, to, if we do have it in-house, to give incentives for them to move into the actual communities in Deerfield Beach. So I wanted to say that. I also feel that the permitting process, I feel in my mind that it goes hand in hand with code enforcement. May I have a minute, please?
Yes.
Okay, I think the permitting process does go hand in hand, and I think we should maybe do a study of how to streamline the permitting process to make it, instead of having several steps like the P&Z and the CRA, to maybe streamline it so it goes a little bit faster. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schnitz. Is anyone online? Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street.
Ms. Freitag, could you speak up a little bit, please?
I'm
gonna say speak up, everybody gets quiet.
No, I'm trying to turn my volume up as much as it'll go.
Oh, okay. You just might want to speak closer to the phone, I believe.
Yeah. I'm Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street. I've asked once, I've asked twice, and now I'm asking again. What is the diocese's vision of where Deerfield Beach will be in 1, 5, 10, 15 years down the line? No one has ever given us a complete vision of where the city is going and how we plan on getting there. People talk about development, but who's talking about smart development? Nobody's saying that we are in competition with any other city around us besides the vice mayor, but I prefer we not be in competition with other cities. We are not going to shrivel up and die if we don't have every single blade of grass developed into a 300+ apartment complex. Again, smart development, not overdevelopment, is the need of our city. And I'm still waiting for the distillery to be built around the corner next to the restaurants and the shops at the bottom floor of the public storage. Talk about developers taking advantage of us. This is how we create smart development, not overdevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online?
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I want to make sure we publicize the Black Heritage Banquet at the Doubletree Hilton this Saturday, starting at 6:30 p.m. Among the honorees will be the Adams brothers, Wayne and Daryl Adams, who have a wonderful podcast that is extremely informative. I have my 2 tickets, but just found out I have a conflict and will be unable to attend. Commissioner Preston, I want to give my 2 tickets to you for you to choose someone from the community that you think would like to go, but the cost may be holding them back from attending.
Can you hand it to the, thank you.
Now I need to talk about something that the District 4 Commissioner said he never wanted to hear another word about ever again. In fact, the commissioner mentioned 4 times in the space of 58 seconds on May 16th that he never wanted to hear about it again. I am referring to the 100 new beach garbage cans that were just delivered to the beach last week. These are the same garbage cans that the commission approved at their May 16th commission meeting at a cost of approximately $1,300 each. Now that the taxpayers have had a chance to see the topless garbage cans, a poll was recently taken to see what the taxpayers think. A total of 360 people weighed in to say whether the new garbage cans were worth the cost compared to the old beach garbage cans. 92% of the people thought the expenditure was a waste of the taxpayers' money, while 8% thought otherwise. Nobody could figure out the obvious design flaw in that none of the garbage cans have tops to keep the rain out. I guess, Mayor Gans, there is an overwhelming amount of people who do want to do things on the cheap and don't appreciate wasteful spending of the taxpayers' dollars. At the last commission meeting, the mayor asked the taxpayers to give him examples of corruption. Otherwise, and I quote him, "shut up." So here are a few recent examples. Over 65-year-old retired city employees still being allowed to stay on the city's medical plan instead of going on Medicare scandal. This practice was stopped only after the 2017 mayoral election had passed. Next is disgraced ex-city manager Burgess Hanson being defended by all commissioners and the mayor up until the day he was allowed to resign instead of being fired, which purely by coincidence happened only 3 weeks after the March 2019 city elections. Next, we have the Barwis soccer field scandal. Up next is the Center for Active Aging Construction Contract scandal. Next is the Bob Norman Channel 10 News hiring scandal regarding the newly created city position of may I have another minute, please? Superintendent of Recreation. The mayor also said last meeting he didn't see any corruption cases being brought by the FBI or OIG against him or the city. The reason for that is very simple. The lawsuit filed by Class Act Restaurant Group LLC, owned by Tula Amana, against the city of Deerfield Beach will eventually expose the corruption and bid rigging that occurred at the highest levels of Deerfield Beach government, including the city manager and city attorney. And I will never again suggest the city settle this case, as I have urged in the past. The reason is this case needs to be tried so that a criminal referral can be made at the appropriate time to prosecute whoever in the city of Deerfield Beach broke the state of Florida's procurement laws. It will be very interesting to see where that criminal investigation leads. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going to close it to the public then. Thank you so much. Mr. Chinatsky, thank you for your opinion on that with the code compliance. Obviously, it's something that's very tricky. I think, Ms. Freitag, we've had visioning sessions. We've had lots of conversations regarding that. The new garbage cans, I noticed in the polling that the people that were against it seem to get blasted for not living in the city, yet the people who actually don't live in the city, who are members of your little page, Mr. Hers, they don't seem to be singled out for not even living in the city. As far as corruption, yeah, Mr. Hanson was given a choice, resign or be fired. We still had the meeting and brought it out in the public, as well as the Barwa situation is what led to that. If you think that's corruption on my level or somebody else's, when I'm the one that told him that he needed to either quit or be fired, and I brought it to the public, you seem to be a little confused on what corruption is. As far as the over 65 employees, that had been going on since the days of Al Capolini and probably even Gene Robb, and was something that was discovered by city staff and brought to the public to air out and correct. Once again, if you fail to be able to bring anything forward to somebody, I can give you examples of plenty of elected officials been removed for office. It's not like those agencies don't move forward with those things. I look forward to seeing this lawsuit settled and brought forward to the public, and you eating a lot of crow.
Okay, we are now on consent agreements and expenditure requests. Items 3 through 6 are currently on consent.
Commission, any polls?
Nope.
No polls? All right. Does anyone in the public want to comment on item 3, 4, 5, or 6? Anyone? Not seeing anyone? No one online? Close it to the public then.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Vice Mayor Parnas. Seconded by Commissioner Hudak reluctantly. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 7 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the award of ITB 2024-06-PC for the City Hall Building Hardening Project to Slayman Construction LLC, authorizing the execution of a contract with Slayman Construction LLC, the lowest price responsive and responsible bidder, in an amount not to exceed $1,567,865.80, and providing an effective date.
Good evening, Commissioners. I have Mr. Jelnick who's going to provide a presentation, but just to preface the presentation, this is not what the city had envisioned in terms of a city hall renovation when it issued the revenue bonds back in 2018. The projects that we have completed and that are underway are doing obviously very, very well. The street resurfacing has been completed. The Center for Active Aging has been CO'd. We have staff moving in. I have toured the building. I am very, very excited and pleased with how it has turned out, and can't wait till that we do the grand opening in March. And if any of you are interested in touring that prior to, please let me know. And then, of course, we have the Tigner Center, which is really moving at lightning speed. And if you remember on both those last 2 projects that I mentioned, both of those, we had change orders that were approved by the City Commission to enhance the experience for the community who those centers were meant to serve. That really kind of left City Hall at the tail end of all of this. And I hope I was clear enough with the commission to say that the vision that we had for the City Hall renovation simply will not be feasible with these additional change orders and the increased costs. And that's really where we are. So what we're left with is the improvements that you recently approved as it relates to safety and security concerns within the public-facing entrances of City Hall. And then this hardening project, which is a 50-50 match with through the HMGP, which is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program administered by FEMA. And this is about 3 years in the making. And with that, I probably took a lot of her thunder already, and I'll hand it over to Priscilla.
Well, we're done.
I would agree. I think so. Let's see if I can get this to move forward. It's not moving. Just go to the first slide. Just briefly discuss some of what the city manager got into a little bit. We'll go over what the actual scope of this project entails, the funding sources and the available funding that we have in our budget, talk to you a little bit about our procurement process, and then go into the recommendation for the lowest bid. So the scope is a strengthening project for the existing building.
This really consists of removal of all of the existing windows and doors and those existing shutters that you see on the building today, and it will be replaced with impact-resistant windows and doors. We'll also be patching and repairing the damaged interior and exterior walls and repainting those areas. One of the most important portions of this work is replacement of the flat roof that is over our building and planning and zoning area. This is an old existing wood framed roof that requires replacement. We're going to be replacing it with a metal deck on steel joists and a new 60 mil TPO waterproof roofing system. So this is really going to help weatherproof this building. We've had a lot of challenges over the past few years, and I know many of you are aware of the weatherproofing issues that we've had with the building. In addition to this, we'll be anchoring the mechanical equipment, new boots, all of that with the new roofing that's being installed. The lobby entrance is getting a little bit of a remodel. The arched window is being replaced with something a little more modern, a more modern aesthetic. So that area will be reframed. Next slide, please. So the funding for this, briefly discussed, this is the Florida Division of Emergency Management that's funding this through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. It is only partial funding, and as you know, costs have increased. So the budget that we currently have in what's left of the 2018 bond is approximately $2.5 million. Of that, we've encumbered over $700,000 for the drainage portion of this project. And so what we're left with is $1.8 million in that original bond funding. Next slide, please. The procurement, so we advertised this in December. It was sent out via the e-procurement marketplace, went out to over 400 available offers in that marketplace. We had 13 views, and on January 5th, received 4 bids. Of those 4 bids, they were reviewed, reference checks were made, and Slayman Construction was found to be the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Next slide, please. So our recommendation tonight is for the City Commission to approve this award recommendation and permit the city manager to execute a contract with Slayman Construction LLC in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million, $1,567,865 with 80 cents. And that's the conclusion of this presentation. If you have questions, thank you so much.
The public, do you have any comments on this? Anyone online? Yeah, I'm gonna close it to the public.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. You guys hit it right at the same time. Vice Mayor and then Commissioner Grosky.
Say motion to approve.
Commissioner Grosky.
I'm reluctantly gonna go along with this, but I just want to comment that, you know, this is like putting lipstick on the proverbial pig. This building is in dire need, not just of hardening, but of a tear down, to be honest with you. One of the few things that I get to do as the president of the Broward League of Cities is visit other cities. And I had an opportunity to go this last Friday to an event in Pembroke Pines, and they have an absolutely spectacular city hall complex with brand new offices and event space. Granted, they're 3 times the size of our city, but look at the city of Sunrise. They have a brand new city hall as well. Coral Springs has a very nice city hall complex as well. Our neighbor to the north, Boca Raton, does. And then you come to little old Deerfield Beach, and we should be embarrassed. I mean, here I'm sitting in my 7th year up here, and we're no further along than when I first got elected, and that's just a shame because government is so darn slow to go through the P3 process, which hasn't even begun, and the master planning. So throwing this money into a building that's eventually going to get ripped down or should get ripped down seems like a waste. But by the time you get to the point where this needs to be rebuilt, I mean, you're years down the road. And so you have to put the lipstick on this pig. So I'm not happy about it. I wish this was further along. And that's my 2 cents literally on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Hudak.
It's more like putting splints on a pig with broken legs. Unfortunately, we got to do it. I mean, but look at the things that we were able to accomplish with the funds. We've got a lot of buildings that we were able to accomplish and a lot that we can be proud of. And we said a couple of years ago that if we go forward with those buildings, this is going to have to wait. And we had to make an educated decision. And I feel we made the right decision. Yeah, this pig has 4 broken legs and we got to put splints on it. And I'm reluctantly going to go forward with it as well. But look at the accomplishments that this commission has been able to do with those funds. I'm very proud of. One of them we just got the certificate of occupancy for, so very excited about it.
Is that a second?
That is a second.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We have a motion by the vice mayor, I believe.
Yes.
We have a second by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Oink, oink, yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
We are now at comments by administration and legal. No comments from legal tonight.
I have a few this evening, Mayor and Commissioners. First, I want to make you aware of, there's a meeting that was placed in your calendar for tomorrow evening that'll take place at the Central City campus. And this is, it's a pre-grant requirement meeting. And so just to let you know, and this will be coming before the City Commission on the 20th, but we're required to have a public meeting before we submit this grant, and the grant is due on the 26th. And what this grant is it would be a portion of what it would take to do renovations over at Mayo Howard Park. And so as you know, we have the 1045 project coming our way, $7.5 million in community enhancements. And this grant would help to offset some of those costs in its entirety. So we'll have a brief check in the box requirement meeting tomorrow night for that grant application. And then of course, if we do seek this, if we are able to get this grant, certainly the public participation to what the visioning of that park would come at a later date. So I did want to clarify that for you and for the public. Additionally, we have a special city commission meeting coming up prior to the CRA meeting next week. This technically is a city item, but it is related to the rideshare program that was recently approved by the CRA board. And this would provide for the space for the charging station infrastructure. So we'll do that just before the CRA meeting. We'll start the commission meeting at 7 and the CRA meeting at 7:15. I wanted to just give you some idea of what the meeting was that I attended on February 2nd at the school board, which was held for elected officials and city managers with Dr. Licata. And that was surrounded by the topic of redefining our schools, where he addressed what it's going to take and the process that will unfold as they look at trying to tackle some of these larger issues within the school board as it relates to under enrollment, population changes, the various alternative choices that people have today in terms of public schools. So, he talked about that being about a 12 to 18 month journey. And I know that there's some scheduled meetings coming up that they have throughout the county coming up, and that those will also be placed in your calendar. But happy to discuss that with each of you individually if you want to hear more about that. That's all the comments I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now at item number 8. It's a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, authorizing participation in a lawsuit seeking a declaration that the provisions of Section 112, 144, 1D Florida statutes that require municipal elected officials to file a Form 6 financial disclosure form is unconstitutional and invalid, providing for an effective date. If you'd like, I can give you a brief overview of this. Sure. As you all know, as elected officials, in the past legislative session in 2023, there was a law that was ultimately passed that requires municipal elected officials to now file what's called the Form 6 financial disclosure. Previously, municipal elected officials were required to file a Form 1. A Form 6 disclosure, which is done by the state legislatures, is far more extensive of a financial disclosure and far more intrusive. Since that time, the law firm that I work at, Weiss Serota, received a number of calls, dozens of calls from a variety of different cities throughout the state, indicating requesting whether we would challenge it or not. By December 31st of last year of 2023, which is the date by which you would need to resign in order to file a Form 6 requirement, there were over 100 elected officials statewide that chose to resign their position instead of filing a Form 6 going forward. And there has been arguments that this is a real deterrent for future individuals to serve in their local municipal elected office. The matter that was before you came as a result of a commissioner request. I can tell you at this date, as we sit here, there have been 20 cities thus far who have approved a resolution and have decided to join the lawsuit. Additionally, 46 elected officials from those cities have also decided to join on an individual basis in their individual capacity. The agreement provides for a flat fee. The firm said that they would do it. If we had 10 cities that would contribute $10,000 apiece, we now have 20. So I think that the complaint is fairly, well, it's almost finished, and we plan to file next week. Happy to answer any questions that you all may have on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments? Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did request to sponsor this this lawsuit because I think it is grossly intrusive on the individuals. There are a lot of city commissioners who volunteer their time. They don't, it's not even a paid position in a lot of cities. We're fortunate that it is paid here. And I think it's vitally important that we protect our rights too as private citizens. I understand, state elected officials do have to go through this form, but they are at a different level than we are. We are within our communities. We are very active in our communities, and it is, in my opinion, a gross overreach of state law to require such a form to be filled out by commissioners at our level. And that's why I've asked to sponsor this and bring this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston?
Commissioner, you might have forgotten. It was my idea.
It was.
Yeah. Okay. But no problem. No, no biggie. Yeah, I told the commission that this was coming and that there were several cities and other officials that.
Well, then, thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. So I just want to bring that forward. Okay.
Commissioner Drosky?
Thank you, Mayor. There is no doubt that the Form 6 requirement is definitely an invasion into our privacy. And not only that, it's not only is the argument that it could have a chilling effect out there, but it has had a chilling effect without a doubt. The Sun Sentinel did an article this past Sunday on it, and they report over 125 city elected officials statewide have resigned as a result of this requirement. And in fact, locally, just to the south of us, Lighthouse Point, I believe, had two vacancies. They had 3 candidates for 2 vacant seats. And because of this requirement, all 3 candidates decided not to run. I believe that was the situation there. So this has definitely had a chilling effect. Unfortunately, I'm going to be a no on this because I'm putting my attorney legal hat on, because when this requirement first was enacted for the state legislators filed a lawsuit as well, saying is an invasion of privacy and would have a chilling effect. Basically the same arguments in this lawsuit, and they lost. And so I don't see the legal merit to it, and I'm a no.
Thank you. I do want to give the credit and thank Commissioner Preston for bringing this forward. We've seen this chilling effect. What's even more annoying is when we were in Tallahassee and talking to some of our representatives up there, this whole thing came about. The person that sponsored it and brought it forward did it because they were angry at couple of their local officials in the city in which they represent. So they decided to punish everybody, not thinking about the ripple effect that would occur. And it's not so much the ones that are in office, it's those who want to come forward. We've got a failed candidate that was here tonight, and she wouldn't even answer a basic question about how would you differ on things, and thought it was too invasive to ask how long have you lived it where you live? If they think that's invasive, as a candidate, wait till they see this Form 6. It's going to scare a lot of people away. And I think in the end, what it's going to do, it's going to prevent the citizens from having good representation, because I think it's going to keep a lot of good people away, not for reasons of corruption. There's plenty of ways to take a look at that. And everybody's word of the day, toilet paper must be on corruption this lately. But, I think that's already weeded out in other ways when it comes to the forms that we fill out. This is going to be something that's going to have a really bad impact on municipalities. When you think about it, the argument is up in Tallahassee, hey, it's put on us, I'm going to put it on you. Well, there are only certain positions up there. You think about how many cities are represented by one of those representatives, and how many elected officials, and how many potential candidates for those seats alone. The numbers are staggering, and to really limit the fields, I think, is unfortunate. So thank you, gentlemen, for both of you for sponsoring this, bringing it forward, and I look forward to supporting it. We need a motion and a second, I guess.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, second by Commissioner Hudak. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
No.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perez,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Now at comments by mayor and city commission.
Okay, I'll start with District 1.
No comments this evening.
Okay, District 2.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Hers for the tickets, and I will definitely see that they go to someone that can really use them. So thank you. Excuse me? This Saturday, 6:30, we're going to have the Black Heritage banquet. I would like to invite everybody, but it's sold out now. And but I would like to thank staff for their work. There was some complications about getting the speaker. We were able to resolve that, and so I'd like to thank staff for their work and getting that done. And I'm looking forward to it. I would like to thank the City Commission in years past for coming out supporting it. It is a very viable tool to bring our communities together, and all of your participation is greatly appreciated. So thank you. And that's it, District 2.
Thank you very much. District 3.
Me?
That'd be you.
Okay, no comment.
Okay, District 4.
The only comment that I have tonight is an update for my colleagues that the Broward League of Cities has been working with the Broward County City Managers Association and the Police Chiefs Association, working on a revised contract with the school board with respect to reimbursement for school resource officers. And now that a final contract has been agreed upon, it's going to be disseminated to the city shortly, and it should be coming to us either later in February or early March at the latest. And while it is certainly not everything that we had hoped for, it is a negotiation and an agreement by the school board to increase funding at 5% for the next 3 years per year, including the year that we are in, the school year that we are in, 5%, and then 5% for the 2 years after that. So it does show some movement on this side of the school board to work with the cities going forward. So I'll go into that more detail when the final contract is, put on the agenda. It has to be tailored to each particular city. Each city has a different number of SROs. So each city will have a different contract, but our contract should be coming shortly. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention, to be on the lookout. It's coming shortly. And I want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. Don't forget, guys, next week.
Great. Thanks for the reminder. Thank you.
Bill,
Thank you.
before you start,
Yes.
due to the fact that my family is coming to visit tomorrow, I'll be out of commission between tomorrow and Sunday.
So you won't be getting the tickets from
where?
From Commissioner Preston.
Oh,
I'll be giving those to-
my people have bought a few tickets.
No, not a problem. Thank you. I do want to thank staff and the commission for all their hard work and working towards making a presence in a position regarding the waste management item that had come before the county commission. Is the ball was punted, which is a good thing, but there's still going to be more work to be done. So I want to thank you for the rallying, Commissioner Drosky and Vice Mayor Parnas. Thank you so much for the work you've done, and staff for the excellent job on that. I want to make sure that BSO is still out there watching the speeding. We're still having that issue.
Yep.
And yes, in the Black Heritage Banquet's one of the best events we put on, actually. It's a great event. So those of you who didn't get tickets in the future, I suggest you try to get them early because it is a great event. I believe that's all I have. And that's it.
Bill, if you need a ticket,
No,
use mine.
I'm good. Meeting for adjourn? Adjourn? All right.
Second.
Meeting
Aye.
adjourned. Thank you.